Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Ichigo got Squad Zero's Zanpakuto Part 4. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Why are you returning so quickly? Student Baragan asks. News that the Seireitei must know immediately, I say. Nanao walks by me towards the communications room where we are keeping our equipment for contacting the Seireitei. Nanao, have you contacted the Seireitei yet? I ask. I was told to contact them again when the Seireitei wakes, Nanao replies, and my eyes narrow behind the mask of my helm. I am furious with whoever gave that order. Sasuke Fukuteicho gave the order, Nanao tells me. No other would have had the authority. She explains her reason for such an action at the order of one theoretically equal in rank to her. Difference in prestige between divisions is likely why she obeyed the orders of another lieutenant. The 8th has one great victory. The 1st has hundreds of them. I must speak with the Seireitei. This information is far too sensitive to trust a lieutenant to deliver. He must be told, in person and without delay. Baragan, you and the others must immediately begin to learn Shikai, Segunda Etapa, and Bankai. Meditation will be necessary to enter your inner world so you can contact your Zanpakuto spirit. It can most likely instruct you on achieving those 3 releases, I say. He nods in agreement, but one of his Frachian, Agio Vega, looks angry. Who are you to command His Majesty in such a fashion? He snarls. I am a Shinigami Taicho, his new superior officer, and a man who just learned that there are 13 forms possible to Resurrection, and that this Ulquiorra has almost achieved Novena Etapa. I snarl back. Everyone here goes pale. We will begin training at once, Sir Baragan says, his air of arrogance disrupted. Is there anything else? He asks, clearly not wanting to. Yes. Worse news. Much worse. Your defection damages Aizen for only a few days, I say. Eyebrows are raised, and I see the other ranker have joined us. Why would that be? It will be hard to find hollows of our level in Hueco Mundo, though Ulquiorra could easily convince them to join. They need to be found first, and he is only one ranker, Stark says calmly. Novena Etapa is bad, but not disastrous, he continues. He is about to evolve, become an Imperator Escuro, I snarl. That gets their attention, and looks of utter and complete horror appear on their faces. Then Aizen can unseal the Rey Demonio and their armies, get hollows that are very likely stronger than you, and without every Bankai we can muster, every Segunda or Tercera Etapa we can manage, we are dead. Primera Etapa makes you 10 times stronger than you are in your sealed state. Segunda Etapa makes you 100 times stronger than you are in your Primera Etapa. Tercera Etapa makes you 1000 times stronger than you are in Segunda Etapa. You do the math and calculate how big of a threat Ulquiorra is with Novena Etapa as an Imperator Escuro, I growl. Okay, it's a disaster, Stark says, very clearly shaken. I'll start training then, he continues, and heads towards the training fields. I believe that we will join those Shinigami currently training as well, Hannibal says, signaling her Frachian, who follow her towards the fields as well. Apache and Mila Rose arguing. Good. Now, Nanao. I don't care if I have to go to the Seireitei and drag Yamajiji out of bed myself. He is going to wake, and he is going to hear this news, I state calmly, but on the inside I am anything but calm. Yes, sir. I will contact the Seireitei at once, Sir, Nanao says. I'll begin studying what information we have about this Ulquiorra, if we have any. Tabs are kept on every high-level Ajuchas and all Vasto Lords by Mitsukido teams that infiltrate Hueco Mundo, so it will likely be easy to find information I can use to power up my Bankai, Nanao tells me. My other Zanpakuto may be useful as well, depending on which tale it wants to tell, Nanao states. Her second Zanpakuto, why and how it came into existence I don't know and don't want to know, has the ability and Shikai to force the characters to exist in the settings of a novel or a movie on occasion. They replace 2 characters and play the roles of those characters. The closer one of them sticks to the plot, the stronger they get. As things change, however, as they fail to play the roles of their characters, who are selected at random, the story changes to force them into battle. If one of the combatants has stuck to the plot, they are strengthened. If not, they are weakened, how much depending on how much of the story they changed. It is not a good Zanpakuto to use when fighting alongside others who don't read a lot, as her Zanpakuto loves to choose obscure tales to retell using its Shinigami and her foes. Indeed. You would have to be careful about it though, I say grimly. Both your Zanpakuto are dangerous to your allies, as well as your foes. I would not want to be stuck in such a thing, my fate determined by my knowledge of the foe or of a book. I am not a good actor, so playing the role of someone else would suit me little. Understood, sir, she confirms, saluting. Then we use Shunpo, heading towards the communications room. Contact the Seireitei at once. There is vital information that the Seireitei must know. I snarl at the two 12th Division members who were sent along to maintain our communications. They nod and immediately begin the process of contacting the Seireitei. The room is largely blank, a massive screen dominating one wall, the controls at another wall, and the rest of the room featureless, painted black in a vain attempt to cover how plain it is. What is the meaning of this? Fukatecho Chijiro asks as he appears on screen. I stand forward, making myself clear to him. This is on my orders, and the information that must be conveyed to the Seireitei is vital to the war effort. Wake him immediately, or I will come to the Seireitei, have you thrown in the maggot's nest as a traitor to the Seireitei's war effort, and wake him to tell him this myself, I growl. The curse is most definitely rising within my mind, and the air is filled with murder and the thirst for blood. I cannot, Chijiro tries to say. I cut him off. Now. Prepare the Sinkamen. This information needs to be delivered, and I cannot trust a lieutenant to deliver it. This is code-wide information, involving armies sealed beneath Wako Mundo, I say, dropping a hint. Chijiro goes pale. So Aizen is unsealing them, he asks cautiously, clearly not wanting to believe his ears. I nod in confirmation, responding to his query with two utterly terrifying words. Imperator Escuro, I say, and he bows before he leaves the first communication room at a run. This kind of news needs to be brought to the Seireitei, and if he didn't do so, I would have been more than justified in throwing him into the maggot's nest. Code-wide is maximum alert, all divisions are to be ready at a second's notice, literally. What is it? Ichigo Yamajiji asks when he arrives a few minutes later. All Chijiro would say was that it was code white. You are inexperienced, so I will determine if it is truly a code white before the alarm is spread, he declares. One of Aizen's ranker has achieved resurrection. Octava Etapa, and is about to evolve into an Imperator Escuro, I say, and Yamajiji's eyes fly open. There was some other very bad news Nana was carrying earlier, probably a code white as well, but Chijiro told her to contact the Seireitei again when you had woken, I say. Chijiro is whacked over the head with Yamajiji's cane. If it is urgent enough that a captain feels I should be woken, Chijiro here reprimands his lieutenant, who winces and nods. Is there any other bad news to go with the news of this ranker, Yamajiji asks, and I nod solemnly, regretting having to tell him there is worse news yet to come. I silently signal for Yamajiji to sit and brace himself, and he does so. You might want to call for some sake. There is a lot of bad news I have to pass on, not the least of which is that Aizen will be able to unseal the Rey Demonio and their armies soon. That particular ranker will be able to command them as an Imperator Escuro in mere days, I say. Chijiro, call for sake. I have a feeling it will be needed to fortify this old man for the news to come. Yamajiji orders, and his lieutenant bows and leaves. One question. Are there more releases than 2 for Shinigami, I ask. Is there a way, beyond Bankai, to strengthen your Zanpakuto? There is. But the training methods are secret. Before you ask, I cannot teach them. I do not know those methods. The releases for Zanpakuto that go beyond Bankai are restricted for the use of the Royal Guard. And the Royal Guard will not fight until Aizen reaches the gates of the Spirit King's palace. I have asked both for the training methods and for the Royal Guard to fight, but the Spirit King has decreed that in this conflict, the Royal Guard will not do anything other than defend his palace, and that we are not allowed to learn how to access the higher releases. To ensure that the higher releases are restricted to his guards, the Spirit King, when his Zanpakuto is born, seals their memories of how to access their higher releases, so they can't do it if manifested, nor train their wielders in them. I will ask again, but it is unlikely he will allow us the higher releases, Yamajiji informs me. What the hell, I ask, stunned. Why restrict that power so much? Why not let the guard fight? My reaction exactly when I first heard of these powers. We need that backup, but we can't get it, Yamajiji says in frustration. My curse is reacting once more to my rage at these restrictions, Nanao clutching her chest. Sir, please restrain your curse, Nanao asks. The pure thirst for blood in the air from its reacting is making me feel as if I'm being stabbed, she says. I breathe deeply, forcing the curse to slumber once more. I had almost forgotten about that curse, Yamajiji says. A century and more of its existence being barely evident in the most recent Kenpachi made me forget about it. During the times when we first fought the Hollows, that curse, and the Kenpachi who suffered from it, was our greatest weapon. A warrior whose very essence was murder and rage, a near unstoppable berserker. There can only be one Kenpachi at a time, usually, but right now we have 3. Anahana has become peaceable, the curse has gone dormant in her, but she is still a Kenpachi. She was the first Kenpachi of the Gate 13 when it was a formal organization. But she was the 28th to suffer from the curse. Hopefully, the curse can be reawakened in her, and we'll have 3 bearing it actively. In you, the curse is incomplete, but maybe it can be completed, granting you the full might of a Kenpachi, the strongest warrior. Finally, Zaraki needs to have the curse strengthened so it actually affects him. The curse takes away much from you, but in return it grants great power, which might prove the edge we need against this foe. When a ranker evolve past Vasto Lord by eating hollows while in Resurrection, they become Rey Demonio, not Rey Demonio Ranker. This ranker of Aizen's must have underwent the process a second time to turn him back into an ranker. He will have to do it again once he evolves, though once he became a Rey Demonio, he no longer needed to return to his existence as an ranker to evolve into an Imperator, as Kira Yamajiji explains. So, once they evolve, they are weaker. They will not have Resurrection, and the power required to let them evolve will have damaged them. They will heal swiftly, but you would have maybe an hour to kill them while they were weak, he tells me. Weak is a relative term, I'm guessing, I ask, knowing the answer all too well. Yamajiji nods in reply. I curse at this, knowing that putting together a decent kill team for such hollows will be difficult in the extreme. I will petition him immediately. Expect me to contact you within a few hours, Yamajiji says. Okay, I'll go practice my first unique hollow power then. Respira, an attack that ages things. Got it perfect when I was facing that ranker, an Ulquiorra cipher, I say. Yamajiji nods in approval. If worst should come to worst, we will require more wizards. If they can use Resurrection, the extra power that can be gained from that will be vital to the war effort, he declares. Speak with Urahara about how such a thing can be done. All restriction on Shinigami gaining hollow powers is removed, with a formal declaration under martial law to follow on that subject, Yamajiji proclaims. Understood, Yamajiji, I respond, and bow in respect. He returns the bow, then leaves to contact the Spirit King. I have a theory on how a ranker can sustain such states as Resurrection. Octava Atapa Baragan says. He had been silent during the meeting, attending as the observer for the other ranker. I get along best with him so far, respecting him as my sensei, and him respecting my power. I signal for him to continue with a wave of my hand. High-speed regeneration. When we use Resurrection, our capacity to hold power, along with our power, increases. We do not have limits on how long we can use Resurrection, as our swords have merged with us, their power maintaining our state, rather than our power maintaining theirs. Resurrection keeps itself going, and the regeneration all hollows have keeps our bodies from being harmed by power too much to contain. High-speed regeneration is an ability that is a heightened form of our natural regeneration ability. It is much rarer among hollows, but we all have some sort of ability to heal, even if it is slow, Baragan explains. If that ability grows stronger as hollows evolve, it could very well keep them from killing themselves with their own power. Damn them to the depths of hell. Why can't these cursed rankers who serve Aizen make things easier for us? Why can't they just die, instead of having some strange powers that will keep them alive in the face of our best efforts to kill them? Please tell me any other bad news there is now, so I don't have a good mood wrecked by it later, I ask Baragan. Very well. And a judge I contacted has informed me of who the new Quinta is. A vast old lord who is very well known among hollows. He has shrouded his name in mystery, but his reputation is known to all in Hueco Mundo. He invented a hollow version of Kido. He occasionally teaches some more intelligent judges or vast old lords to use it. Any hollow could learn how to use that ability. It is essentially your Kido, reinvented and altered for the use of hollows. He doesn't even need to state the names or incantations of his attacks anymore. I saw him fight a few times before, when I was a Vasto Lord, before Aizen recruited me. He is vastly powerful in terms of pure Ryukyu, able to fight using only the highest level attacks of his form of Kido for hours or days on end. Do not underestimate his power. He is dangerous in the extreme, and he has one other dangerous ability. He can observe an attack once, then recreate it due to his mastery of Ryukyu manipulation. He has fought Quincy's before from what I know, and has been seen wielding one of their bows before. As an ranker, he may be able to do the same with Shinigami Kido and abilities. No matter how hard he tried, from what I know he never managed to copy his Zanpakuto technique. But when he is part Shinigami, I would not call doing such outside of his abilities, Baragan says. All I can hope is that he cannot copy the Resurrection of others. With Yami's physical power and his Kido, he would undoubtedly be a threat greater than any but Ulquiorra. He is very weak in close combat, but at range he excels, Baragan muses darkly. I would need to kill him in a single blow to make absolutely sure he can't pull any tricks. There is one technique of Zanka no Tachi's that could do it. Not Tenchi Kajin, that isn't quite powerful enough for what I'm thinking of. It is similar, but instead of a ranged attack, the length of the sword is increased, the fires extending from the blade. One attack, cleaving everything in its way into two. Zanka no Tachi, Nasu Isudo. Kono Burito no Mei Nai, Kaizen no Subit no Wa, Shikyaku Sarit Iru Longsword of the Remnant Flame, Northwest. Before this blade, all existing is incinerated, I name the technique. It cannot be stopped, it can only be dodged, and that is no easy task. Get caught by even its edge, and you will be destroyed. Behind that one strike is enough power to reduce the universe to smoldering ash, I say. That will do nicely for dealing with a few of the Espada if they can be set in its path, Baragan says. Indeed. But it can only be used once every 4 days to keep the wielder from destroying themselves with its power, I say, cursing that fact. As my power threshold grows higher, I'll be able to use it more often, but even so, it will be a decade before I can use it every day, a century before I can use it multiple times in a day. Very well. We will have to manage with what we have. Perhaps we will get lucky and someone will kill Aizen before he has the chance to attack us, Baragan says optimistically. We can hope, I say, but my tone is dark. War is on the horizon, and this will be a bloody war indeed. Worlds will burn before this is finished. I have the results of my petition, Ichigo Yamajiji says. It took 7 hours for the petition to be heard, judged, and responded to by the Spirit King, and after training all that time with Respira, the only thing keeping me on my feet is anticipation of the answer, which will hopefully be favorable. In the face of these foes, how can it be anything less than favorable? We need more power to defeat Aizen and the Espada. The Spirit King has refused to let the Royal Guard fight, has refused to allow us to learn the higher releases, and has issued a proclamation that no Shinigami may use Bankai. He says that if we can't defeat Aizen's army without a Bankai among us, we are not worthy to serve in his court, guard Yamajiji says. What the hell, I ask in shock. That is ludicrous. Insane. That please tell me this is a very bad joke, Yamajiji, I plead. It is not a joke, sadly. The Spirit King has spoken, and we must obey. Aizen and Tausen have Bankai. We have Shikai to match that, Yamajiji snarls. My strategies were based on the knowledge that we had so many Bankai at our disposal. With now I have to adapt for Shikai and figure out how to beat Aizen's Bankai with only Shikai. He kept a few notes on it, which we discovered an hour ago. Besides his ability to make reality a dream, he may also exert absolute control. From control of the senses to control of the mind, trapping you, helpless to act while you cut down your own comrades under his control. And if you have seen him use Bankai, which fortunately only Ichimaru Taicho has, he may do this at any time. Apparently, Anohana's Kido that she used on Ichimaru Taicho has halted Kyoka Sujetsu's abilities to affect her until she sees it again, though Yamajiji informs me. At least there is a little good news among all the bad, I say. The very little good. The Royal Guard, over the 5,000 years since the Spirit King began his rule, has added many members to its ranks. All of them had their aging halted by the Spirit King, so none will be affected by old age. And now, 7 of them have turned traitor, joining Aizen. They were apparently dissatisfied with the king, so decided to try and put a new one on the throne, Yamajiji growls. We have to face the higher releases with Shikai, I shout in disbelief. Yamajiji nods. Yes. We must obey this order. At least, we must obey if we are formally under the Spirit King. All of the different Reaper organizations are under some god of death. Elysium, the Greek organization, is under Hades. Uruk, one of those in what is now the Middle East, is under Ereshkigal, a Sumerian goddess, Yamajiji explains. So if we leave the command of the Spirit King, I trail off, and Yamajiji nods. We would not be obligated to accept his orders. We could undo the seals. However, we would be independent, having to fight for our territory. The Spirit King would likely have some other organization bring us under control, or claim our territory. We would have to raise our blades against other Shinigami in order to fight Aizen. Can you do that, Ichigo? I will ask each of the captains this, and if 6 besides me agree, then we leave the Spirit King's command, possibly forever, Yamajiji tells me. I will follow you into hell itself. We leave his command, and I will raise my blade against anyone I have to keep my independence, I respond without hesitation. Agreed. We heard you were talking with the Spirit King, then went straight to Ichigo, so the captains were curious, Kairaku adds on. He and the other captains emerge from the shadows behind Yamajiji, blades ready. Right now, I am the only captain in the world of the living, Sajin and Soifan having been temporarily recalled from duties guarding me. I too agree, Anohana says calmly, hand on her blade. Agreed without hesitation. You are the one who allowed me to become a Shinigami, not the Spirit King, Genryusai Dono, Sajin growls out. I am with Ichigo, and let the Spirit King rot for his attempt to get us killed by testing our worthiness to serve him, by halting our use of Bankai. I agree to our separation, Jushiro says. She stands tall, then starts coughing suddenly, and she doubles over as Anohana grabs her, hands glowing green. I discreetly signal Urahara to get everything ready, as he had been preparing things to deal with Yushiro's illness on my command. We assumed she had tuberculosis, and got everything ready to treat her as soon as possible. Urahara nods slightly and leaves the room to prepare the medicines for transport. I agree as well, making the number 7 captain, Soifan says. There are looks of shock all around it are turning against the Spirit King. Very well. Are there any others who agree? Yamajiji asks. I agree, Ichimaru-chan says. As a snake, I can't take having my fangs blunted. I want to be able to bite down on Aizen with sharp fangs and unleash the most potent poison I have, she explains. I agree with Ichimaru, Zaraki growls. Keeping a warrior from going all out is stupid. I want to be able to fight at my best, and I can't do that if I can't go all out. My equivalent to Bankai right now is removing my eye patch. If I keep it on, I'll be beaten by some of those Espada, and I don't want to lose when I could have won here. Reasons. There are nods all around the circle at this logic. Plus, who is the closer authority to us? Someone we've met and who commands us directly, or someone we've never run into who makes decrees we're expected to follow no matter what, Zaraki asks. Indeed. I too agree. Maybe I will get to experiment on Shinigami from other organizations and find out what differences there are between us, Kuritsuchi muses, Ashisogi Jizo drawn. Yes, I think this new situation will do very well indeed. One captain left for a unanimous vote. I agree, Byakuya says. I am engaged to Ichigo and will agree with the path he has chosen, she explains. I nod in gratitude at this loyalty to me against what her principles as a noble must be saying. Then we are all agreed, and I believe we can assume that Aizen Taicho and Tausen Taicho agree as well, given they're leaving the Spirit King's command, Yamajiji says. Indeed, Kairaku says, laughing. Souls will still come to us, and our dimension no longer needs the Spirit King to support it. We no longer need him, but he needs us. I think we should remind him of that and make sure he understands that the situation has changed, Kairaku declares. There are nods all around at this. Well, that's that, then I say, turning from the screen to the Arankar, who are in the communications room at my command. All of them are in their newly arrived Shihakusho, Zanpakuto sheathed. Welcome to the 8th division of the 13 Seireitei guard squads. Please, try not to eat the souls, I ask politely. Understood, Taicho Stark responds, as several of the Arankar here and the captains in the Seireitei double over in fits of laughter, Grimjo among them. Yes, we'll try to avoid taking a bite out of the souls we now protect, Halibal deadpans. Besides, they don't have enough Ryatsu to taste good, anyways. Dutrubaragan agrees. We lead other hollows, they have more Ryatsu anyways, he proclaims, glaring at his Frachian, who is apparently trying to imitate Yumichika. I was forced to see his Resurrection recently and suffered severe mental trauma from the experience. He was about to speak, but now he falls silent. I dread the day he achieves Segunda Etapa, as it will likely be even more horrific. Maybe we could kill Aizen with the sight of his Segunda Etapa. Or at the very least make him wish for death. I agree not to eat the souls we are sworn to protect, Grimjo says, calming down a bit. Then he returns to laughing. Now, I'm going to go get some sleep. And Neutra, stop laughing, I order. Neutra continues laughing, and I glare at him as my Ryatsu suddenly takes on a more sinister tone. Respire, I hiss, and the dark mist lances forth, and he rolls away as the floor under him rots to nothing. I haven't yet figured out how to make Respira spread once it hits something, but it is still a useful attack. What the hell, Neutra asks. Grimjo is laughing even harder now. Respira, I hiss again, and the dark mist strikes at Grimjo. If you have the breath to laugh, you have the energy to train. Respira, I tell them as the dark mist strikes and they start running. We leave here tomorrow, and the necessary item for Chad, Ryu, and Ryukin to be freed from their bodies has already been prepared. The shop has been concealed with Kido, so it can't be found by those who aren't part of the spirit world, so we don't need to worry about our base in this world. The warehouse now has the same Kido on it, just in case, as it is a home for the wizard in this world. This barracks needs to be dismantled so no enemy who enters the shop can use it to station their forces in striking distance of us, as Karakura is the place where it is easiest to access the Seireitei. Elsewhere, we would be able to sense and counter the opening of a passage to our realm. Well, shit. We're getting chased by the Taicho, and he's trying to age us to dust, Grimjo says as he runs through the halls. Yeah, I hear you there, Neutra says as another Respira strikes at their heels. There are loud curses coming from them for the next few hours as I dismantle the barracks. I'm tired, but there's always a need to train, tired or not. Taicho Nanao says as I finally stop chasing the two Arankar so I can catch my breath. Please, leave them in one piece. Also, that Orihime girl arrived half an hour ago. She says she's coming with us to the Seireitei. Apparently that Jinta boy told her for some reason, Nanao says. I sigh in annoyance. Stall her until the morning. The only areas I didn't dismantle were the living and eating areas, along with the hot springs, right, I ask, and Nanao nods. I'm going to go sleep. She can wait until morning. I suppose we'll have to bring her, but I don't like the idea at all. She's a pacifist, not suited to the eternal war, one say. Understood. Orders as to how to deal with her, Nanao asks. We can't have her talking to just anyone. She is not the best at discretion, even though she is known as a dreamer. Make it look like an accident. We'll bring her soul with us, leave her body in her apartment. She won't be needing it again, so there's no need to hide her body and suppress memories, I say. There is idealism and holding to friendships. Then there is practicality. This is the only way to deal with the problem Orihime now presents me. Chad, Ryu, Ryukin, all of them can remain silent. Orihime can't. So, you're going to end her life, Ichigo-san asks. I thought the boy I raised would die for his friends before ending their lives, he says. I have a duty. I will protect the many, and this is the only way I see. I am a Shinigami captain now. Tell me, when you were a captain, would you have done any different from what I do now? If so, tell me, I snarled back. No. Do as is necessary, Ichigo. You're a man now. You make the decisions that have to be made, regardless of how unpleasant they are. Farewell, and hopefully we'll meet again. I won't tell the girls anything different from what you said. You have my word. Just don't enter my home, he responds. I nod. Very well. We have a deal, I say, and turn towards my bed. I weep for the death of innocence. But I am resolved. Duty before all else, and I will do my duty. Now. I'll do it myself. I owe her that much, at least I say over my shoulder. Yes, Taicho Nanao responds, and fate is sealed. The division is ready to leave, Taicho Nanao informs me. Everything is already set up in Inoue-san's apartment. 3 of the division took it upon themselves, and it was made to look like a robbery gone wrong, Nanao informs me. Take their names. Put them in for a month of paid vacation wherever they want, I respond. I really didn't want to have to do the job myself, but I owed her that much, I felt. To do it myself and face my decision, rather than have someone else do it and simply content myself that results were achieved. Very well. She had her soul separated from her body beforehand, so there will be no trouble with her becoming a hollow or possibly a Shinigami, in which case she would lose her powers to reject events, Nanao says. They aren't her powers. They're mine, in the form that most suits her. Whenever she uses those powers, my Reiatsu is mixed in with hers. If she became a Shinigami or hollow, those powers would return to their original owner and her own natural abilities would appear. The powers she now wields would keep the same form, unfortunately. I don't have much use for healing by undoing an event when I can use either healing Kido, possibly high-speed regeneration, and eventually reverse the flow of time to undo my wounds, I respond. Her shield rejects damage, but it can only take so much. She has not the willpower to hold the shield as strongly as she could, and I have a suspicion that she has created a limit on the shield's power that would be near impossible to undo. The same may very well apply to her attack, which is greatly weakened and possibly fading from existence due to her dislike of it. Do not do anything about the situation yet. Her other powers are also unsuited for my fighting style. Act only on my orders, I say. Yes, Taicho Nanao responds with a sharp salute. So, we took our powers from you and molded them into a new form, Ichigo-chan asks, coming up behind me. I turn and nod, confirming this. Do you wish for me to return my powers to your possession? Chad continues warily. No. I have my blades, I have armor, I don't need your weapons and armor. There is the potential for you to be very powerful if you unlock all your powers. One arm, the will to defend. The second, the will to attack. One leg, the desire for speed. The other leg, the desire to stand as strong as the mountains. Your chest armor represents your determination to do your duty, and finally your helm represents your determination to see justice done. 6 pieces of armor, each able to evolve. I can feel each one of them within your power and know what will bring them forth due to this. However, each must be brought forth in specific order. First, defend. Then, attack. Next, do your duty. From there, move as quickly as the wind, then stand your ground, immovable as an old oak tree. Finally, see justice done and be clad in the armor that is yours, I tell him. It's not hard to figure this out since he's using my power, adapted to fit him. Zangetsu assisted me with figuring out the specific triggers and the order necessary once I had a general idea about what his powers really were. I didn't have a chance to confirm it until I ran into Chad again, when I could feel his powers clearly, rather than working off of a memory of seeing them used by him and sensing his Reiatsu. Only my memories from my previous life even allowed me to accurately guess at his powers, as I didn't have enough experience with analyzing Reiatsu signatures in this life. I understand, Ichigo-chan replies. Good. Now, let's be going. We're needed in the Seireitei immediately. Now that the division is at full strength, we will be deployed once more when hollows cause trouble again, however there has been very little hollow activity anywhere in the other worlds recently. Only 2 divisions are even partially deployed right now, and it is suspected that Aizen is behind this, I inform Chad, Ryukin, and Ishida. The 2 Quincies had just come up apparently to speak with me when they overheard my most recent comment to Chad. The Senkamen, as if on cue, opens and the corridor through the Dangai opens. Team 1 will be the first through, followed shortly after by the second, and so on. Team 1 vanishes into the door, heading for the Seireitei. I signal to my bodyguard, the Vizard, my human companions, including Orihim, who Nanao just brought over, and follow a moment after them. Finally, returning home to the Seireitei, rather than being stuck among the living. That evening, at a captain's meeting. So, I believe we have a major matter of business to discuss, Kairaku says, opening the meeting. Who is the most likely to attack us first? There are several Shinigami organizations that the Spirit King might call upon to force us back under his control. However, which is the most likely to be our first foes, he asks the other captains. Each of us is considering the information we have on the other soul societies carefully to determine our possible foe and how to deal with them. So, it is true. You are in rebellion, Ulquiorra says. He walks into the meeting room, hands in his pockets, not having entered Resurrection yet. Hello, Ulquiorra. How did you know about our leaving the service of the Spirit King, and how did you get into the Seireitei, I ask, curious as to what Aizen is doing by sending Ulquiorra here. It probably isn't good for us, but then again, it may be good. Such news spreads quickly. Not an hour after you decided and made the declaration, one of the royal guard, who is a spy for Aizen-sama, informed us. Aizen-sama was curious. He did not believe that you would rebel against the king, in whose name you declared war. He wished to know what your real plan was with such a ruse, but it seems you are rebelling. As for how I entered the Seireitei, I entered the outer Rukongai through Garganta and infiltrated the Seireitei by seeming to be a candidate for your academy. I believed that I might be able to assume the authority to, on Aizen-sama's behalf, offer a truce and possibly alliance against the Spirit King. We want him overthrown. You will need to either reach an accord with him or overthrow him. I doubt your pride will allow you to bend the knee in abject humility and beg for him to let you return to his service, so you need him gone. Aizen-sama desires that the Rukongai be made into a place that does not hold only misery for those souls unlucky enough to arrive in the districts, such as District 80. The Spirit King would not hear your petitions to be allowed to enforce law, and the Central 46 denied such permission before he did. So, Aizen-sama decided the only way to achieve his goals was to rebel. If you are willing to make this truce, or even ally with Aizen-sama, I will return in 2 days to take any 5 of your number to Las Noches, Aizen-sama's fortress, to discuss the matter with him, Ulquiorra says. I nod in reply, and he vanishes in a crackle of static. We will make the alliance, I say, before anyone else can. We need the help. If we do not make this alliance, we have to fight the Royal Guard and the Spirit King's own military force. You know as well as I do that the Royal Guard is his elite, but he still has an army made up of captain-class fighters that is almost half the size of the Seireitei's entire force. Every single one of them, souls picked out for unthinking loyalty then given powers by the Spirit King, will have Bankai, if not the higher releases. A nearly overwhelming force if we don't have allies. That's just one army we will face. Then there is Aizen, who will undoubtedly have an army as well. Awakening the sealed armies and turning them into a rancor will give him thousands of soldiers, all of them likely lieutenant or captain level fighters. If he doesn't have enough from that, he can just grab a few thousand ajuches and turn those into a rancor. He has enough power that they, by instinct, will follow him. So that's army number 2 we face without this alliance. Then, the Spirit King will probably open hell and unleash its warriors on us. Those will be powerful foes as well, requiring a lot of our attention to face. Then the old threat, that army of Quincy's. If they take advantage of our weakness from the other armies, they will attack, likely followed by that army of Fullbring using humans that rumors are spreading about. It is without a doubt gathering in the other worlds, and we're in trouble if they attack. Finally, the other soul societies. We will be fighting them to preserve our independence from the Spirit King, and they may not have all our power, but they have enough to be a lot of trouble for us. So if it's a choice between a war on 6 fronts or making an alliance, I say we crown King Aizen the first, I snarl. The other captains are nodding at this logic. A few of them are chatting between themselves about how to neutralize a couple of those threats at least, if it becomes necessary. Any one of those foes, we can take on and be confident of victory. Except maybe Aizen. He can replenish his ranks too fast. But the others, their warriors take years to train. So do ours. We have an advantage in skill though, and we will use it. The Spirit King's army never sees battle, they aren't hardened to war. We can and will meet them with savagery that will break their ranks. Other royal armies will have the same problem. Quincy's are warriors, but we can and will fight them and win, as we have before. Fullbrings are dangerous, but rare. We have numbers, we can and will win that battle should it happen. Other soul societies will have fewer captain-class fighters than us, they can't match us for raw power. We can overwhelm them with our strength if need be. Hell has warriors aplenty, all of them powerful, and they will just be reborn and attack again if slain, but we've fought and driven back such incursions before. We can again. Aizen is the threat, I say. Indeed. We need this alliance, Soifan says. Yamamoto Taicho's logic is sound. Better this than annihilation. Agreed. I will pick the 5 to be sent in 2 days' time to negotiate with Aizen, Yamajiji says. Among them will be Ichigo and at least one of these a ranker that have joined him to provide power and a guide through this fortress, he declares. I'll take Baragan. He controls time, he'll be powerful enough to take out a few of the enemy, and he will be a good guide for the party sent to negotiate, I respond immediately. Yamajiji nods. I'll also take Soifan, Zaraki, and Nanao. The more knowledge Nanao can gather, the better if things turn bad, I say. Very well. Prepare your team, you leave the moment this Ulquiorra arrives, Yamajiji responds. I salute and turn to leave, Soifan and Zaraki following a moment after. If things go wrong, Soifan's Shikai will be needed and Zaraki will then have to assist in getting us out of there. I make a mental note to have Kai no Ti no Megami and Suzumabachi ready to draw when I visit Aizen, just in case. At Las Noches. Ulquiorra's Pav. Aizen-sama, the rumor was true. The Gate 13 are in rebellion, I say the moment I enter the meeting room. The other Espada are within, 2 new faces having joined us, along with the Priverin temporarily rejoining us until we can break the seals. I will be evolving in only a couple of days, and it will take roughly 2 weeks after that to break the seals, so we will be seeing them for a while before they return to the tunnels. Currently, they are relishing their return to the Espada and are sitting proudly in their chairs, attentive to my words. So, they have split away from the Spirit King, Towson says. Justice must have guided their path, as only that possesses the power to truly guide people onto a righteous course, which may allow them to truly see that the universal justice is enacted, he declares. I consider incinerating him with a Siro, then decide not to. Too much trouble would result from doing such a thing in front of Aizen-sama. Maybe later, when there aren't so many people watching me. Indeed. I have agreed, on your behalf, to go in 2 days to retrieve a party to negotiate a truce or alliance, Aizen-sama, I inform him. Good. You listen to them for a while after making the offer, I take it, Aizen-sama asks me. I nod in reply, confirming this. I had used Sonido to go a short distance away, then returned, masking my Ryatsu as best as I could. Yes. They will make the alliance. Otherwise, there will apparently be a 6-front war for them to fight. An army of Fullbring using humans and a Quincy army were mentioned, along with the royal armies. Souls chosen for unthinking loyalty, then empowered to become captain-class warriors in the direct service of the monarchs of the spirit realms, I say. Hell's forces and other soul societies were also mentioned as potential enemies, I continue. The only one of those foes I had any clue about was the other soul societies. I think I do wish to negotiate, Aizen-sama says, slightly disturbed by this news. I will bring 5 of them in 2 days, I respond. The team will consist of Baragan, Soifan Taicho, Yamamoto Taicho, Zaraki Taicho, and Isufuka Taicho, I continue. I had gone to no small amount of trouble to learn the names of all enemy lieutenants and captains, so I would know who possible threats were. Bring them tomorrow morning. I wish to negotiate as soon as possible, Aizen-sama commands. Undoubtedly I would not be allowed to continue with my own rebellion, so I would face at minimum a 5-front war if I didn't ally with my former comrades. The Spirit King can no doubt find some way to get these other armies to fight me as well, and even with my army as strong as it is, a 5-front war is unappealing to me. Bring them tomorrow, Ulquiorra. Yes, Aizen-sama, I reply, bowing and turning to leave. There are preparations to make for our guests tomorrow. The human, Orahem Yamajiji, calls after me as I leave the meeting hall. I freeze in place, unsure what is about to happen. I approve of your actions. The last time a human let slip about the spiritual world to the wrong person, it was a disaster that took 3 years to cover up properly. The incident involved a spiritually aware human letting the truth about the afterlife be known to a human inventor. The spiritually aware human, one Kurosaki Satoshi, a cousin of your mother's if the records we kept are correct, told this inventor, whose name was not recorded, this information in the hopes that he could create items that would allow the average person to see and fight spirits. He felt that the Shinigami and Hollows should be forced from the world of the living and perhaps even chased into our own worlds and destroyed. The inventor created such items, but he used them for far different purposes. He captured Shinigami and turned their souls into a source of energy, ripping apart their souls to turn them into energy. For a few years, he did this successfully and made his fortune by selling energy harvested from Shinigami and eventually Hollow souls. When we discovered this, having thought merely that Hollows got the Shinigami who were captured, we took action immediately. We found out due to a Shinigami on patrol, managing to escape for a time and make his report. When he was captured, we tracked his Ryatsu and found out what was happening. Immediately after, Captains Hitsugaya, Kichiki, Zaraki, Towson, and Kamamura were deployed to put a stop to this, unsealed and with Bankai approved. The inventor and Kurosaki Satoshi had no idea that even Shikai existed. On the hollow side of things, we allowed this information to leak to a vasto lord, and shortly afterwards a two-pronged assault occurred. The hollows did not wish for that to continue, in fear that weapons would be developed that actually could harm the Minos. So when the Sinkamen opened, Garganta opened as well. The hollows, specifically Ajuchas, dealt with part of the assault, ensuring no escape for either the private army this inventor employed or the inventor himself. We dealt with the other part. The enemy was quite surprised to find out about hollows having higher evolutions, and their ability to use Zero, and Shinigami, having the ability to use Shikai and Bankai. We took no losses in that battle, but it took 3 years to finish cleaning up the mess and concealing everything, Yamajiji explains. This Orihime, if she would have spoken to others about this, was too great a danger to leave in the world of the living. You did well, Ichigo. Thank you, Yamajiji. I made the decision without knowledge of this earlier incident, but I am gratified that you believe it correct, I respond, bowing, then turning to leave once more. The next morning. Hello, Alquior, I say. I just finished my paperwork and was about to train with the team I'll be taking into Las Noches, so we can know a bit more about each other's abilities, before we possibly have to fight together. Yamamoto Ichigo, Alquior responds. How did you sense me? I was concealing my Reiatsu from you, he says. Your Reiatsu? But not your blades. No, that blade of yours is a beacon for me, now that I know what to look for. I have multiple Zanpakuto, it isn't hard for me to find the Reiatsu of another Zanpakuto, I respond in an amused tone. In fact, by concealing your Reiatsu, which I can't detect properly, you made it a whole lot easier for me. I find Shinigami by their blades, not by their power, if I want to be subtle about searching. I see. Somersai Lago allows you to detect me with ease, Alquiora says. Correct. I can't find it if you're emitting Reiatsu, hybrids confuse me, but if you were emitting only Reiatsu like that of a Shinigami, like you do when using Shinigami arts, or only hollow-type Reiatsu, like you would when using Zero, I can find you with a bit of effort, so long as you're nearby, I say. Alquiora is slowly walking to be in front of me, as the rest of the contact team arrives on the training field. Conceal your Reiatsu, and I can find your blade without trouble. You can't conceal your blade's power except by masking it with your own. I understand, Alquiora says, drawing his blade. Higher stages of Resurrection require that an Arrancar manage to contact their blade spirit and suppress it to draw its power forth in a manner similar to your own. We know how to use Primera Etapa the moment we are reborn as Arrancar, and Primera Etapa is done with our own power. All other releases are done with the power of our blades. Tercera Etapa requires manifestation of the spirit and then defeating it in a challenge of your choice. Cuarta Etapa, the Zanpakuto will choose the challenge. I tell you this because Aizen-sama commanded I tell all Arrancar I meet how to achieve this power, to tempt them into his service by giving them a taste of the immense power they could have if they achieved even higher stages of Resurrection, Alquiora explains. I see. Interesting, but Aizen forgot to tell you not to mention it to any Arrancar not in Hueco Mundo, I'm guessing, I say. One of Baragan's Frachian was near his master and listened intently. Now that Frachian, Geo Vega if I remember right, vanishes in a crackle of static, reappearing with the other Arrancar. It's a rule of mine that all hybrids are to conceal their Reiatsu or emit only one type of Reiatsu while not training. Can you use Shinigami-style releases, I ask, curious. We can, but it is difficult. I can only use Shikai. Bankai is still far beyond me, Alquiora states. I see. Thank you for the information. My team is ready to leave immediately if you are ready to do so as well, I say. Alquiora nods, and a Garganta opens behind him as we draw our blades. I have Raijin Jaka, Kai no Ti no Megami, Suzumabachi, and Kyoka Sujetsu are among the blades at my side, just in case I need their abilities to deal with threats. Suzumashi and Shinigami no Yuta are at my back, but ready to be drawn in a heartbeat, if necessary. We will arrive in Aizen-sama's throne room. You may release your Shikai or Resurrection the moment you enter, if you feel it necessary. Aizen-sama does not wish to possibly be in a 5-front war, so he will allow you to make yourselves slightly more secure. He will leave Kyoka Sujetsu in the custody of an Arrancar who has no reason to help him and indeed resents his demotion from the Espada. Is this sufficient reassurance, Alquiora asks. Yes. I have Kyoka Sujetsu among my Zanpakuto, so I will be able to tell if this is not done, I respond as I enter the Garganta. Very well. Let us be going then. Aizen-sama waits, Yamamoto Taicho, Alquiora says. I form my path out of the chaotic Reishi, and 4 other paths appear beside mine as my companions step into the Garganta. Alquiora forms his path, and in a flicker of Shunpo or crackle of Sonido, we vanish, heading towards Aizen's throne room and the negotiations that will determine whether the Seireitei stands strong or falls against an endless tide of enemies. Las Noches, Aizen's throne room. Hello Yamamoto Taicho, Zaraki Taicho, Baragan-san, Soifan Taicho, Ice Fukateicho, Aizen says as we leave the Garganta. His blade is outside this room, in the custody of an Arrancar, just as Ulquiorra said it would be. I draw Kai no Ti no Megami and Kyoka Sugetsu, and everyone else save for Baragan draw their blades. I instructed him to save his Resurrection, just in case. Hello, Aizen Taicho, I respond politely. Sting all enemies to death, Suzumabachi Soifan says, her blade changing, becoming the extremely deadly Shikai that made her famous among certain circles. I casually bring Kyoka Sugetsu into the line of vision of as many people as possible, making sure I'll get the maximum effect from its Shikai. Shatter, Kyoka Sugetsu I say, and reality fractures as illusion replaces it. I reseal Kyoka Sugetsu and sheathe the blade, then draw Sanbonzakura. Being able to attack with her Shikai will be very useful when the blades are cloaked in illusion. She has taught me several tricks she never taught by Akuya, among them how to control each of the tiny blades separately. I no longer strike in one or two directions while in Shikai, the blades overwhelming my foe in a tide of death, but rather from every direction at once, each blade striking on its own, tiny and deadly. I stab Sanbonzakura's point into the ground, ready to enter Bankai in a moment, and draw Shinigami no Yuta. Sing, Shinigami no Yuta I say, then stab her Shikai into the ground. She can sing without my input, and will only tie up a hand that could be used for a direct combat Zanpakuto if things go bad. I draw another blade that can act on its own should things turn nasty, this one Ashisogi Jizo. All of us have doses of the antidote at the ready, and will use them the moment Kanjiki Ashisogi Jizo comes into play. Rip, Ashisogi Jizo and the blade enters its Shikai, and I am prepared to use Bankai at a second's notice. I draw one last blade, filling my left hand with a direct combat Zanpakuto. Incinerate my foe's body and soul, kick out dot at this command, the Naginata with a blade of flames appears in my left hand. The crest of fiery feathers adorns my helm, while massive wings of flames extend behind me, fire wrapping around me. Massacre, Kai no Ti no Megami and my last blade enters Shikai, ready to drink deeply of the blood of my enemies. Quite extensive preparations for this meeting, Yamamoto Taicho Aizen says, sounding amused. Lay down the law, Ryuban no Hazoku Nanao says. The rest of my group is just barely out of her Shikai's range, due to the fact that she shunpoed right next to Aizen before using Shikai. I've seen that Shikai once before. Indeed, very useful against me, Aizen compliments Nanao. I take it the rest of your party will stay over there, out of your range, he asks, and I nod in confirmation of this assumption. I'm going nowhere near that Shikai, if I can help it. If Aizen gets outside its range, I'll force him back in. But I'm not entering it and risking losing the majority of my strength, depending on how many enemies I'll need to know about. How about we get to the point of this meeting, Aizen Taicho, I ask respectfully. Very well. In respect to you, Yamamoto Taicho, I will be blunt. I know the forces of the Seireitei. I know my forces. I know that against the foes threatening us, neither side can win alone. I lack the knowledge of the foe necessary to win, while other soul societies and the royal armies will most certainly not lack that knowledge of me. I cannot predict what they will do, I cannot plan how to deal with their abilities. You do not have the numbers and the ability to quickly replenish your ranks that would be required to win. For a Shinigami to become captain class requires several things, and there is an average time required for each one. First, 6 years at the academy to learn the basics. They will receive their Asauchi and begin to form as Zanpakuto in that time. It will take roughly 14 years of service after that before they can be expected to have Shikai. Once they learn Shikai, they need to master it, let's say that takes 5 years. You now have a Shinigami who can fill the post of a 20th seat. Then they need to learn Kido up to number 50 or so. That would usually allow them to fill the post of 15th seat or so, and they won't need to go further until they are a lieutenant or perhaps 3rd seat. Then having decent ability with Shunpo, perhaps enough to cross a maximum of 100 meters, 325 feet, with each step, is required for 10th seats, I'd say. After that comes Hakuta, and they need to achieve a fairly high level of ability with that, let's say mastering at least the basics of Hakuta, if not going further. You now have someone who can be a 5th seat, with a decent level of ability in all 4 arts. Let's say this takes another 50 to 75 years to accomplish. You take up to a century to train a 5th seat at normal growth rates for Shinigami. Then they need to master Kido without the need for the incantation or naming the Kido at all up to level 40 at least, and manage Kido in the mid-60s with incantation to be above 5th seat, maybe lieutenant. That will take another 20 years to accomplish, I'd say, Aizen declares. I agree with that so far, Nanao says. Your data is correct, for the most part. Thank you, Fukatecho. Now, you have taken 120 years to train a lieutenant. However, they now need to achieve basic materialization. That will take another 30 years or so to achieve enough skill to keep the Zanpakuto materialize for an hour. However, it can take up to another 50 years after that before the Zanpakuto can be kept in material form long enough for Bankai to be achieved. 200 years to achieve Bankai, then another 10 years to master it. But having Bankai is not all that makes a captain. Keto ability sufficient to manage any Keto up to the low 90s with incantation would be required, I feel. Do you agree with that? Ice Fukatecho Aizen asks, and Nanao nods in agreement. I agree as well. So far, he has used reliable statistics to outline this. The length of time for each achievement is correct, and I know that because I checked the records to see how much my Reiatsu sped up the growth of some of my officers. That alone would take another 20 years, then the prospective captain level Shinigami would need another 20 years to achieve mid-level mastery of some of the more advanced Hakuta techniques and a mastery of Shunpo, sufficient to travel at least 4 times as far as a 10th seat could. In an eighth of the time it would take a 10th seat to travel the distance a captain may cross in one step, Aizen says. 250 years for a Shinigami to become captain class. I doubt the Royal Army takes that much time to train its warriors, he continues. Correct. Maybe a century would be required from observations made some time ago by Yamajiji, I reply grudgingly. You see my point then. Quincy's and Fullbringers are both human and thus grow quickly. They take maybe 20 years to be able to fight on the level of a lieutenant, 30 to fight on the level of a captain. Possibly less, depending on their natural skill level. I know little about their abilities, however. The Seireitei has the knowledge I need. I have the army you need that can be quickly replenished and grow stronger swiftly. So, if we ally and overthrow the Spirit King, I am willing to rule alongside one of you. Choose a king from among your ranks, and I will consent myself to rule alongside them and share my strength, Aizen offers. Deal, King Aizen the First, I respond immediately. Yamajiji told me to hold out until Aizen accepted a co-ruler last night in a private meeting. We accept these terms, and you and your soldiers are welcome in the Seireitei, so long as we are welcome in Las Noches, I say. I accept. I will accompany you back to the Seireitei once I retrieve my blade, Aizen says, joining my group in a flicker of Shunpo. I immediately punch him, breaking his nose. That is for not visiting Kyoka Sujetsu after you attained Shikai, and for not talking to her after you got Bankai, I say with grim satisfaction. Aizen raises his head with a rueful look in his eyes. I believe I deserved that punch, then he says. Tausen, remain here and watch the fortress. I believe that Yamamoto Taicho is furious with you, and you would not survive a trip through the Garganta, Aizen says. True, I admit grudgingly. However, he may survive to die extremely painfully later, I snarl. He has much to answer for. Very well, shall we leave, Aizen asks, amused at my tone and words. I nod absent-mindedly as I retrieve my blades, and the Garganta opens. Once more, 6 paths of Reiatsu stretch out before us, and once more, the group either vanishes in a flicker of Shunpo or a crackle of Sonido. The Seireitei, at the 8th Division. Well, welcome back to the Seireitei, Aizen Taicho, I say. I am not precisely happy about welcoming back a traitor, but we need his army and have also betrayed the Spirit King, so I suppose we have no room to complain. I am quite happy to be back, Yamamoto Taicho, Aizen answers. Well, this little mission interrupted my training, so I had best return to training for war, and my opponent is already nearby, so I don't need to wait for him to come and fight me. Zaraki, how about a little fight to the death? No reason, just for fun, I ask as I draw Kai no Ti no Megami and turn to Zaraki, who grins. 2 Kenpachis, having fun, our way. This is going to be great. The air grows thick with murderous intent as we both draw Kai no Ti no Megami. Zaraki still can't use Shikai though, so I'll avoid it until he removes his eye patch. With a roar of joy, we each charge the other, intent on doing our best to kill each other for absolutely no reason at all. Blades clash, each of us attempting to overpower the other, grinning. Sparks fly from where our blades meet as we struggle, pushing our blades down towards the other's head, each attempting to cleave the other's skull into 2 pieces. Zaraki's blade is slowly forced down, and he disengages and leaps back, ripping his eye patch off. A pillar of golden power roars forth, a human skull forming out of it as he starts laughing. Now we can actually have some fun, Ichigo, he roars, practically gleeful about the coming battle. Massacre, Kai no Ti no Megami, I say, and the blade enters Shikai as I charge Zaraki, determined to kill him for no other reason than to have fun with the fight. The Kenpachi's curse is definitely taking hold whenever I fight, I observe distantly. Or maybe it's Kai no Ti no Megami influencing me. Doesn't matter, I'm having too much fun to bother thinking. I just want to fight. Our blades clash again and again for the next half hour, until we are both bleeding heavily. Kai no Ti no Megami's blade is covered in blood, and my sword hand is dripping blood onto the ground. Shikai is at full power now. In heaven and earth, there exists nothing that will not fall before my blade, for I am the slayer of all things, and where I walk, death and war follow me, I proclaim, and the red aura burning around me changes color, becoming black and gold. Owl Slayer is activated, and now there is absolutely nothing that I cannot kill if I put my mind to it. Swift as the wind, hungry for blood, I hunt eternally, seeking battle, following the ravens to war one declare. Saga of the Grey Wolf and I suddenly gain my second wind, a feeling of tireless energy filling my limbs, a grey aura mixing with the black and gold. I vanish and reappear in front of Zaraki, blade striking at him once more. He blocks, but is thrown back by the strike. He's weakened from the battle, but the Saga of the Grey Wolf grants me great speed and restores my strength, also increasing my endurance. I continue, striking again and again, forcing Zaraki back. He raises his sword to attempt to block once more, and it breaks under the force of my blow. I growl in disappointment and turn away. I had hoped to force Shikai out of Zaraki by pushing him until he nearly died, not break the blade. Now it'll take at least a week to repair his blade, which means I don't get to fight him for that long. What were you intending to do with that battle? Yamamoto Taicho Onahana asks, standing at the edge of my training grounds. I leave Shikai, scowling in displeasure at the conclusion to the battle. Force Shikai out of Zaraki, I respond, irritated. Thought if I pushed him until he nearly died that he could achieve Shikai that way. It can work, provided you know how far to push the opponent, I say. Onahana nods at this logic, agreeing with me. Nearly headed, Zaraki growls. I was in that eternal battlefield. I saw the chariot that she was riding in, above the endless war. A warrior's heaven, and I can't get there whenever I feel like it, damn it, he growls. But I couldn't hear her name. I'm strong enough, but I'm not able to hear for some other reason, Zaraki figures out. I smile slightly. At least he was close to Shikai. Now all that remains is to figure out why he couldn't hear her name. I've tried it before, but apparently I need to get her name from her before I can use Shikai, he snarls out. He is very clearly aggravated about the setback to his achieving Shikai. Perhaps we should begin teaching you Jinzen, Zaraki Taicho, I ask, amused at his aggravation. Fine. If it means I can get back to that battlefield, I'll learn how to do anything, so long as it doesn't involve becoming a pacifist, Zaraki says grudgingly. I try to imagine Zaraki becoming a pacifist. I really can't imagine it, it just doesn't compute. Aizen, who was standing by the side of the training field all this time, has a distant look in his eyes. I enhance my hearing and hear him muttering an equation. Zaraki. Minus his sword. Plus pacifism, no, impossible. But how can he become a pacifist, Aizen asks the heir. I think you broke Aizen-san, Zaraki Taicho Hitsugaya-senpai says. He, Ranjiku and Ichimari-chan had arrived just in time to hear Aizen's last words. Allow me to congratulate you. All your drinks for the next week are on me, Hitsugaya-senpai declares, and Zaraki grins at this. Now you're talking. Just add in another good fight and this day will be perfect, he says. Though my blade is broken, he trails off as I reach to his broken blade with my Riatsu and surge my power through it, mixed with Kai no Ti no Megami's power, fixing the broken sword. The blade glows red for a moment, then fixes itself, the nicks in the blade filled, the cracks along its length repaired. Excellent. Now I don't have to wait until I heal to get in another fight, he laughs. Onahana has already encased him in a little keto she uses for the battlefield, which compresses the healing process into seconds. It takes almost 4 times as much Riatsu, but it does the work quickly at least. Now, let's have a little fight to the death, Shiro-chan, he mocks. The area is suddenly very, very cold. I haven't yet cleaned Kai no Ti no Megami's blade or my hand of blood, so Shikai and Bankai will still be full power. Massacre, Kai no Ti no Megami, I say, and the blade enters Shikai, immediately going to full power. Bankai. Shai Senjixiano Jiku ga Uwari Tikai wo Wadashita Senshi Megami, I proclaim. My thoughts exactly, Ichigo Hitsugaya-senpai says. Sit upon the frozen heavens, Hyorin Maru. Bankai. Daigurin Hyorin Maru, he calls as a massive snowstorm forms above us, snow beginning to fall an instant later. In moments, vision is obscured by the snow, rendering us all unable to see more than a meter in any direction. I reach out with my Riatsu and find Zaraki and Hitsugaya-senpai, then charge, Hitsugaya-senpai advancing upon Zaraki as well. We both strike at him, as I activate the Saga of the Bear. Firm as the mountains, I stand defiant of all my foes. I cannot be moved, my thirst for battle cannot be slaked, I am he who fights for all eternity, I declare, and immense strength enters my limbs. I am he who cannot be defeated, I proclaim, and the silver aura mixes with the rich brown aura made by the Saga of the Bear. I strike Zaraki's blade at the same time as Hitsugaya-senpai, forcing Zaraki back, then advance in tandem with Hitsugaya-senpai, blasts of ice and power alike striking Zaraki with each hammer blow we rain upon him. My name is not Shiro. Chan, Hitsugaya-senpai roars, each word accompanied by a strike. His name isn't Shiro-chan, I roar at the same time as Hitsugaya-senpai, every single word accompanied by an enthusiastic attempt to kill Zaraki. It's Hitsugaya Taicho Hitsugaya Senpai we roar as one, massive blasts of power accompanying the last word, flinging Zaraki out of the snowstorm, all the way to the first division. Hitsugaya Senpai ends his Bankai just in time for me to see Zaraki impact. I faintly hear a roar of rage from across the Seireitei. Zaraki I hear Yamajiji roar. You wrecked my garden he screams. Yamajiji enjoys gardening and usually does it when he's finished with his paperwork. By the angle of Zaraki's flight and where a dust plume is rising from, Zaraki landed in his favorite garden. Well, this should be amusing. The one thing guaranteed to anger Yamajiji beyond reason is wrecking one of his gardens. Bankai I hear the roar from the first division and close my eyes. Rest in peace, Zaraki Taicho Hitsugaya Senpai murmurs. Let's all have a moment of silence for the captain who is about to die he asks. Zanka no Tachi Yamajiji roars. The air suddenly feels very warm around here, far too warm to be entirely comfortable. Zaraki, die he screams, and flames are suddenly rocketing forth from where Zaraki fell. Half an hour later, I see Zaraki running towards the 8th division from where I'm training with Hitsugaya Senpai, chased by a furious Kairaku and Yamajiji. Zaraki has his blade in one hand, a bottle of sake in the other, and is drinking as he runs. Zaraki, get back here and die Kairaku demands furiously. The sake must be his, then. Well, Zaraki is very, very dead. I might as well prepare to take over the 11th unless the Kenpachi's curse can be inflicted on Tausen. I'm sure he would be a splendid Kenpachi. Might even shut up his ramblings about justice. Bankai. Yozo Akata o Kurenai says calmly. A moment later, a giant of stone picks Zaraki off the ground, then places him on its right shoulder as the giant draws its blade. 3 more giant warriors, made of wind, fire, and water, lumber over to join the giant made of stone, each of them the size of a skyscraper easily, massive blades and tower shields at the ready, as Kurenai draws her blade. We need Zaraki Taicho to fight right now she reasons. True, sadly. Respire I grudgingly say as a dark mist flows forth from my mouth, forming into a wall in front of the 4 giants. Yamajiji grits his teeth, then seals his blade. Very well. But Zaraki's pay is docked until the garden is fully restored he says. That will take at least 6 months out of Zaraki's pay, given how expensive some of those plants were. I wince in sympathy, as Zaraki will now have to be very careful about how he spends his money. 6 months without pay is a very long time, given how many people have special prices for captains, as we make a lot more than anyone else in the Gate 13, and they believe we are oppressing them. Shinigami are hated in the Rukongai for the most part. We need all our pay to be able to put any money aside for later, so docking or reducing our pay is very effective as a punishment for captains. Our pay increases over time, but I have my doubts that Zaraki is paid enough that he has enough saved to get through 6 months without any income at all. Yamajiji apparently realizes this and amends his words. Zaraki Taicho's pay is docked for 1 week and he has to spend at least 6 hours of every day at the 4th division learning how to use healing Kido until the garden is fully restored Yamajiji amends. That is fair, I suppose. However, Zaraki will not like that sentence at all. Spending any time at the 4th is torture to him and spending a large part of every day there for 6 months will drive him sane. He'll become a pacifist and that will drive all the rest of us insane. Well, except for those of us with a Kenpachi's curse, which will drive us further into the curse, turning us into the berserkers we can be if the curse takes hold properly. Yamajiji, what about the penalty for my sake Kairaku asks childishly. Very well. Zaraki Taicho, you may not fight or spar against anyone for 1 month unless the Seireitei is under attack Yamajiji adds. Kurenai, seeing the danger is past, dispels her Bankai once Zaraki is safely on the ground again and sheathes her blade. I follow suit, returning Kai no Ti no Megami to its sheath as Zaraki stares ahead blankly after hearing this last addendum to his sentence. Yamajiji vanishes in a flicker of Shunpo, satisfied, Kairaku following a second after. Well, can't say you didn't earn it, Zaraki I say as I head into the division to eat. Hitsugaya Senpai, will you be joining me for a drink tonight? I think I will be, Ichigo Hitsugaya Senpai replies. Thank you for the offer, and will Matsumoto be able to join us he asks warily. Matsumoto has tried to sneak into my little parties before, so I took precautions. No. My division has been instructed to never allow her into any of the buildings without valid authorization directly from you, with a hell butterfly also from you confirming the authorization. I don't want her in my parties without an invitation. Currently, the guest list, counting you, includes Ajin, Byakuya, Jushiro, Kira, Ikaku, Yumichika, Kurenai, Nanao, Momo, Yamajiji, Soifan, Kuritsuchi Taicho and Kuritsuchi Fukuteicho, Zaraki Taicho on occasion, Renji, Ichimari-chan, you, and it will probably have to include Aizen-sen, to set an example. My little parties, which happen 2 or 3 times a week, have taken on a bit of prestige, so inviting him will probably smooth things over a bit. I reason, resenting having to offer the invitation. But someone has to set an example, and I'm the one who led the negotiating party and insisted on the alliance. I have to be the one who sets the example and invite Aizen to my parties, which I really don't want to do, but duty demands it. Grimjo and Moitra have an invitation issued, as do Baragan, Stark, Hallibal's Frachian, and one of Baragan's Frachian, Agio Vega. I will be quite pleased to accept the invitation, Yamamoto Taicho Aizen says, coming up behind me. It will allow me a good chance to socialize with old friends and subordinates, he declares cheerfully. Very well, just come by my division at 7 tonight. The party is in the dining hall, if you know where that is, I ask. He nods in assent, looking pleased. Good. I'll see you tonight, and remember to bring Ulquiorra with you if you can. I want to see what happens when he gets drunk, I say, grinning. Aizen is suddenly grinning as well, and nods slowly. I like the way you think, Yamamoto Taicho, he says, then starts laughing. Itsugaya-senpai, care to play shogi for a while, I ask desperately, determined to be well away from Aizen, until I get over his compliment of the way I think. Thinking like him is cause for alarm, and very scary indeed. Very well, Ichigo. Also, the Seireitei has asked all the captains to vote on who they would prefer as Aizen's co-ruler, and since we cannot vote for ourselves, nor would I want to, I would be casting my vote for you, Hitsugaya-senpai tells me as we walk away, towards my office and the shogi board I always have set up there. Yamamoto Taicho, a messenger calls, bursting into the room. The sun had just set on a day that was far too long, and I was about to go get some sleep. My party ended not an hour ago, Aizen proving himself to be a very interesting person to talk with. The Seireitei has requested your immediate presence on Sakyoku Hill for a meeting, he pants, clearly having run this whole way. I'll grab Aizen, the ranker he summoned, and Towson and go to the meeting, I say wearily, exasperated. Some of my Zanpakuto have been slow to respond at times recently, so I'm irritated and just want a good night's sleep. I grab my armor, robes, Haori, and Zanpakuto, and begin donning my armor over the modified Onmitsukido uniform I now wear. On second thought, send Nan out to go grab Aizen, messenger-san. I'm going to get some tea before I go, and I'll arrive in an hour or so, I say. But the messenger trails off at my death glare. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. I'll get it done immediately, sir, he says, and vanishes out the door. An hour and a half later, on Sakyoku Hill. Well, about time you arrived, Ichigo Zaraki says. I'm tired, I just finished hosting a party, and I sense a trap in this meeting. Raijin Jaka was silent when I attempted to speak with him, and I had to use my understanding of him to access his power, rather than him freely lending the power to me. Judging from Yamajiji's list of all-time dangerous criminals who could do such a thing as silence Zanpakuto, which he told me about as his potential successor, I'm guessing either Juhabak or Muramasa, and Muramasa is the likely one. No one is to use Bankai that was forcibly attained, and be wary about using Shikai I command. I had been wary about this from the start and took my time making sure all my weapons would be at the ready to deal with this trap. Yamajiji is a great believer in places being used for their intended purpose. He would never call a captain's meeting on Sakyoku Hill. Muramasa Kairaku hisses, blades at the ready in a heartbeat as he, Yuki take, and Byakuya are instantly on guard. They know who Muramasa belonged to and what he is apparently, so also know that we must be ready for battle. The other Shinigami here take our example and draw their blades, though those in Aizen's service, as well as Aizen himself, do not, even as the ranker in service to the Seireitei draw their Zanpakuto, taking their lead from me. What is Muramasa, Hitsugaya-senpai asks. A rogue Zanpakuto spirit with the ability to control other Zanpakuto. He can force their spirits to manifest and turn against their masters, I inform him, wary and ready for battle. What about Yamamoto Seireitei? Shouldn't we be able to sense him fighting if an enemy is in the Seireitei? Soifan reasons. If Muramasa caught him by surprise and chose the right Zanpakuto to aid Raijin Jaka in his fight against his Shinigami companion, they could have won that battle. Yamajiji is missing, presumed dead, I respond. Raijin Jaka's silence can only be explained by his being controlled. Yamajiji is one of the few who could be a viable threat to Muramasa and whatever allies he has without Shikai or Bankai. To keep Muramasa from affecting his Zanpakuto, the wielder must close their heart, and in that case, they cannot use Shikai or Bankai. Understood, Soifan responds as Aizen and his servants draw their blades, now wary. The bridge is creaking as someone crosses it, and I prepare for battle. Yamamoto Seireitei, what are your orders, she asks. Prepare for battle. Avoid Shikai if possible, do not use Bankai under any circumstances. If it's Juhabak instead of Muramasa, the situation is much worse, and we must not use Bankai. Juhabak's forces have the capability to steal Bankai and use them themselves, I say. As ordered, Yamamoto Seireitei, Soifan says. I have not been confirmed, and experience is needed in a Seireitai, not just raw power. I reproach her for unilaterally promoting me without consulting the other captains. Right now, we need power, a clear declaration that we are strong, rather than just experience, Yamamoto Seireitai Kairaku says seriously. Experience can be gained with time. But until we know Yamajiji's fate, you are acting Seireitai. Sir Chijiro stumbles onto the hill, revealing himself as the person who was crossing the bridge, and collapses. Unohana immediately moves to him, hands glowing green as the mist on the hill clears. Muramasa, I say, making the word into a curse as I see who is revealed by the clearing mist. I feel Reiatsu flare in the Seireitei, his army clearly making its presence known. He can only affect those who have Shikai at least to create useful soldiers for his army, so the 8th division will produce a lot of soldiers for his army. Indeed, Yamamoto Seireitai, he says calmly. Raise your head, Wabasuke, I say, and his blade takes on its angled form. Wabasuke, stop him. Using Shikai Muramasa commands as Zanpakuto spirits begin to arrive, some hovering in the air as there isn't room on the hill. All the captains and lieutenants Zanpakuto are behind Muramasa, blades ready. You who are arrogant and proclaim your strength to the world, bend the knee and prostrate yourselves, I proclaim, revealing his true Shikai. How do you have my blade? Wabasuke questions, and I curse Muramasa as everyone on the hill except for Kira and Wabasuke himself is slammed into the ground or forced onto their knees. This Shikai is an indiscriminate one indeed, affecting an area rather than a specific person. My true Shikai? How, he asks, shocked. Clearly Muramasa can remove memories, which means trouble for me. I wield it because I understand the source of your power and take pride in that power, Wabasuke, I respond calmly. Prove it. Prove that you understand me. Wabasuke hisses at me, clearly disturbed by this revelation that I bear his blade. I decide to prove this in the one way that cannot be denied, bringing the stave in my hands level. I nod slowly and concentrate as I gather Reiatsu. So be it. I will provide the proof you desire, I say slowly as an aura appears around me. Bankai, I declare, my voice even, unhurried. Power erupts around me, a maelstrom destroying everything nearby, but I remain entirely calm as the stave in my hands transforms, taking on a shape much like that of Tensa Zangetsu's guard, made of 2 crossed staves, a blade at both ends of each staff. 2 of the blades are gleaming silver, the other 2 a deep black, the kanji for earth, heaven, penance, and pride on each of the blades. Azukashim no Tenkaiu, celestial lord of the shamed, I declare, spinning my weapon in one hand, a lightless void appearing at the middle of each blade's top section, drawing in small rocks, light, and anything else that will fit in the newborn singularities, as they begin to grow and merge, a black hole beginning to form in front of me. I end my Bankai before it can properly form and seal Wabasuke completely. Is that sufficient proof? Wabasuke, I ask him pointedly. Yes. Yes, it is proof. But how did you have a chance to gain this understanding? Wabasuke asks almost frantically. I have an immense hole bitten out of my soul due to a hollow attack. You were one of the Zanpakuto that established your realm there as well not so long ago, Wabasuke, I reply. I refused to attain Bankai through combat, so I worked to understand you, and succeeded, I say, justifiably proud of this. And when Muramasa called me forth, I forgot you. I forgot the master who readily gave up swift power in favor of attaining my voluntary aid, Wabasuke says. I am shamed by this. I am shamed beyond any redemption for this. Master, I must serve Muramasa since he called me forth, but I beg of you to not force me to cross blades with you, he says pleadingly, dropping to one knee. Raise your head, Wabasuke. Meet my gaze, I command him sternly. I cannot. My shame is too great for me to do so, master, he responds, and I grimace, then turn towards the Shinigami behind me, who have drawn blades and are quietly preparing Kido. Retreat. We will not be fighting here today, I order them. A couple open their mouths as if to protest, members of the 39th combat team of the 8, but I raise one hand and they fall silent. That is an order, not a request. I am acting Seireitai, and you will obey, am I understood? I snarl. We need discipline to deal with this problem, and it needs to be handled immediately. Yes, Yamamoto Seireitai, sir, every Shinigami responds, and crackles of Sonido and flashes of Shunpo fill the area as we vanish from the hill. The next day, at the 4th division. We have 3 division buildings undamaged right now. The 4th, the 8th and the 12th. The 11th and 1st suffered minor damage, which can be repaired in a few days, Soifon reports. The 2nd was assigned to covertly assess the status of the Seireitei, so as to give us a better idea of what is salvageable here. Kichiki Taicho is confirmed missing, presumed dead, after a battle with Senbonzakura. Kichiki Rukia has been found, wounded, and considering the nature of her injuries, it is presumed that she fought Sode no Shirayuki. Other Shinigami with Shikai or Bankai have been found wounded from battles with a rogue Zanpakuto. Shinigami lacking Shikai have been found dead. It is presumed that those with Shikai were left for dead, but the kill wasn't confirmed. Attaining Shikai will make a Shinigami more resistant to damage and much harder to kill as their soul becomes closer to whole. There's Zanpakuto's power, born from the Shinigami, merging with their own. I presume that the Zanpakuto are unaware of such a thing occurring, seeing as they usually aren't the ones fighting, and so have no way to gauge how resistant to damage someone should be. Soifan continues. Understood. Repair the 1st and 11th. 1st is our command and control, and 11th is the armory, after all. We store all our weapons that aren't Zanpakuto at the 11th, and a few of those weapons could be extremely useful in this case. Has the armory been raided though? I ask cautiously, anger filling me at the report about Byakuya. No, the armory is fully intact, sir. The rogues Zanpakuto have no use for those weapons, Soifan reports. Understood. I want no one leaving here without being part of a squad. First priority has to be to retake any buildings that have been captured and figure out why Muramasa has become active. Yamajiji explained who Muramasa was, but never explained his priorities or reasons for being an enemy to me. We need to find out why he's attacking and who he once belonged to. We also need to know how he has survived so long without a master. Also, commission proper armor like mine for every Shinigami, though the second will be wanting lighter gear, I'm guessing. Any extra defense is priceless right now when we need every Shinigami we have, I command. Yes, sir. The 3rd and 13th have been captured, and Ichimaru Taicho is currently trying to muster support for an effort to retake her division, Soifan replies. I will see about getting proper surveillance on Muramasa and identifying his command structure so it can be disrupted. I will dispatch on Mitsukido agents to commission the armor the moment a proper design can be decided, and I take it the money for the armor comes out of each division's budget, she asks. I nod, and we both rise a moment later, report made, tasks decided, and moving to deal with the problem. I'll join the effort to retake the 3rd, supported by whatever Ichimaru-chan puts together. Soifan will likely be hunting down any dissenters to the policy I've instituted of fighting this foe. Aizen approaches as I leave the sealed room where the meeting had been carried out. Yamamoto Sateicho. My own Zanpakuto, as well as those of my rancor, currently serve this Muramasa. We are not helpless though, and place all our strength at your disposal in an effort to deal with these irritations, Aizen states. Excellent. I have several uses for that executioner of yours, if he can still make those servants of his, I say. He can. I take it you need disposable troops to weaken the Zanpakuto, so they are easier to defeat, Aizen asks carefully. I nod in reply, and he grins, turning around. I hate the idea of sitting around doing nothing. At least now my servants have something to do, and since you are the one with the most knowledge of how to deal with these foes, I will await my own orders, sir, he says. Very well. I'll have a role for you soon, once you regain your Shikai, I respond. Understood. I too will be working on regaining Shikai, Tausen says, and I turn to glare at him. I understand your animosity for me, but you do need all the warriors you can get, Yamamoto Sateicho, he says. Fine. But one warning. You once fought Kenpachi Zaraki and vowed to end him. If you had, you would have become him. A Kido-bound curse upon all Kenpachi, I tell him, and he goes pale with horror. I see. So should I defeat the demon, I will become the demon, Tausen says gravely. I must consider this carefully, he decides, and vanishes into Sanido. Well, he didn't waste any time in getting himself hollow powers, I observe sarcastically. I am extremely unhappy with Tausen over this. First he torments 2 Zanpakuto, then he takes on hollow powers and abandons them entirely, even after they served him well. He uses Suzumashi for Seireitei, and Aizen comments offhandedly. Kai no Ti no Megami is suddenly in my hands and instantly enters Bankai as I stalk towards Tausen. How dare he defile Suzumashi in such a manner? Well. So, you're the master with my Shikai Kai no Ti no, Megami says as she appears out of nowhere. Bankai too, it appears. How nice. I finally have a master who listens to me and is worth something, she says almost seductively. Tell me of the foes we've slaughtered and maybe I'll let you beat me so I can fight alongside you again. You beat me, I revert to blade form, freed from Muramasa. You get that one for free, she tells me. Very well. Foes we've slaughtered or foes we've defeated, because there are a lot of both, I say, and she laughs delightedly. Excellent. Tell me all, my master, the partner of my soul, my other half, the bloody hand god who revels in death, my lord, she says in a tone half seductive, half vicious, all dangerous. I grin. Where's the fun without a little danger, after all? We'll start with the Kaku, I say, beginning the tale that will take hours to tell properly. 8 hours later, at 7 o'clock that night. Well, that's the saga entire so far, I say, and Kai no Ti no, Megami laughs delightedly. Covered in blood. A lord of the battlefield's most delightful to me, she says. We will fight together again. Muramasa has no desire to make the rivers run red and stain the dawn with blood, she says, grabbing my hand with her blade in it, which was never resheathed, and thrusting it through her heart, dragging herself up it and kissing me before she fades, and a blade is left in her place. The tide as Araki remains within her, but she has very clearly made her preference known. It matters little though. Defeated by me or the original wielder, the spirits of the Zanpakuto will still return to both of us. I manifest Kai no Ti no Megami with a thought, and she grins. I'm throwing a little party tonight as usual. I take it you regained your memories, I ask, and she nods in reply, heading inside, towards the rooms I claimed for myself here. I'll see you at the party in an hour, then I say, rising, armor plate clanking as I do so. My own armor was replaced with a heavier, stronger version I had commissioned some time ago. The Onmitsukido returned with it not an hour ago, and I wasted no time donning it. Orders, Sir, Soifan asks, appearing at my side. Find where each Zanpakuto is. Get a positive ID and find their wielder to get information on them. Then put together a hunting team that includes the wielder, I say, deciding the course of action quickly. As ordered. I'll dispatch the teams immediately. We are preparing to retake the third tomorrow at noon, with your approval, Yamamoto Seireitei, she says. I nod, giving my approval to the planned assault, then reach out one hand to grab the scroll she hands me, which details the plans for the attack. I will personally see to the success of this assault, I tell her as I go over the plans, which are mostly sound. I will lead it myself. Excellent. I like a commander who leads from the front, Kairaku says as he comes up beside me. I picked up traces of Byakuya-chan's Ryatsu. I think she's alive, and I believe I know where she is. Muramasa's master was a Kichiki Kauga. He was sealed away some time ago, but Muramasa has probably found a way to unseal him and wants us out of the way to guarantee his success. Byakuya probably wants Muramasa to lead her to Koga Kairaku reasons, and I groan inwardly. Byakuya and her pride. I let this pass, but I am not happy about the fact that she prioritized pride over the Gate 13. I'll have to correct this. If she had asked me for permission to do this, I would have granted it and gotten Yamajiji to agree as well, but she cut out the Gate for the sake of herself. I'll deal with this, I state calmly, betraying no trace of my fury over this problem Byakuya has created. Yes, Yamamoto Seireitei, Kairaku says in an amused tone. Now, please control your curse. It's getting a bit hard not to be consumed by hallucinations of a very gruesome death, since your curse is acting up and filling the air with latent murder, he informs me, and I reign in my wrath through pure will. Soifan is curled up, shivering. Soifan doesn't have any experience with the Kenpachi's curse, and it hits hard if you don't know how to block it, out, Kairaku explains. I nod, accepting this reason for Soifan's terror, then grab her and throw her into one of the nearby ponds. I can't afford for you to be unaware right now, Soifan, I say calmly. She drags herself out of the pond, dripping wet and beginning to shake as the chill of the night reaches her. I might be nice and warm in my armor, but she has only a modified uniform of the Onmitsukido to keep her warm. I draw Aizen Jaka and casually ignite the blade, drawing on the heat of the flames to warm the area up a little. Thank you, Yamamoto Seireitei, Soifan says once she dries a bit and starts heading inside away from the cold night. It was no trouble. I need all my captains in top shape right now, I tell her as I join her in heading inside, armor plates clanking against each other, as I need to get used to the new armor before I can move soundlessly again in full plate. I allow the flames to die, resealing Aizen Jaka and sheathing the blade. Yes, sir. I will do my best to avoid being incapacitated, though these rogues Zanpakuto might make that a bit difficult, Soifan says with a bit of sarcasm in her last words. I turned, my face a study in shock, fortunately hidden behind my helm. Did Soifan just make a joke, Kairaku asks, his shock clear. He doesn't have a helm, which is unlucky for him. Everyone gets to see him break his usual demeanor of carelessness as he stumbles back in his shock, falling into one of the ponds himself. He rises from the water, shaking his head, then gets dragged under again, his head appearing above water a moment later as he struggles. I hear laughter beside me and see Anohana beside me, having appeared almost out of nowhere. Tentacles are seen wrapped around one of Kairaku's arms as it is raised from the water, and I hear the screams of a man violated. That pond contains an octopus one of my subordinates encountered when she went to retrieve the souls of several drowned sailors, and she brought it back as well. It was spiritually aware somehow, and I swear the thing is half tentacle demon. He will use his tentacles on anything that enters the pond, male or female, Anohana explains, and I whimper. Your armor would protect you. He never figured out how to remove such things, so you could go in safely. Anyone who isn't in fully sealed armor had best beware him, though, Anohana declares. I say a silent prayer for Kairaku's sanity, then draw Zangetsu. Take care not to be caught. It regenerates tentacles and is good at keeping people from using their Zanpakuto, I am cautioned by Anohana. Also, don't try and kill it. Just rescue Kairaku Taicho. I'll explain why later. Understood. There is only one response to this thing I say. Bankai. I gather immense amounts of power forth from within my soul as I enter Bankai, more than I could ever have wielded with only a single Zanpakuto, so long as I was not using my Zanpakuto's final technique, and it is compressed and magnified, as Zangetsu becomes Tensa Zangetsu, the dark moon bound by the chains of heaven. Tensa Zangetsu. The venomous whisper escapes my, filled with fury as the shadows gather to my call. I am wrapped in a shroud of darkness, shadows coalescing, forming a veil of impenetrable darkness around me, only a single pair of burning eyes glaring forth from within. I roar, and the roar is reinforced with Reiatsu, a shockwave of power annihilating every building for 5 kilometers in the path of the shockwave created by my roar. I move, and a sonic boom is left behind as I casually disregard the existence of the sound barrier, reappearing at the pond, not 20 meters away, and strike, a blade darker than darkness, an absolute void where life, where existence, where all things of the material world are denied. Zangetsu protects by destroying everything that could harm me, even the world itself. It brings forth this absolute void should it be needed, and the more power I put into Bankai, the closer the blade comes to reflecting that void. Jutsuga Tenshu is Zangetsu's technique in truth. He is the one that technique was born for, regardless of what lessers and Zanpakuto should think to use it as their own. Jutsuga Tenshu I. This, and absolute darkness consumes the first of the 4 tentacles binding Kairaku, as I sever 2 others with a sweep of the blade, then unleash the moon fang once more to free Kairaku. I grab him and vanish, reappearing with another sonic boom at Unohana's side. I just drew on justified male wrath, the masculine version of righteous feminine fury, so that I could deal with that abomination. I realize this a moment after the job is done, and silently congratulate myself on drawing on this for the first time in my life. I set Kairaku down in front of Unohana and leave Bankai. Or try to. I can't leave Bankai. I panic slightly. What the hell, I scream. I can't leave Bankai. Soifan trips over a rock, Kairaku falls flat on his face, and Unohana's jaw drops as they hear this declaration. Of course you can't leave Bankai, Ichigo Tensa Zangetsu says as he materializes himself. I am partially responsible, but so too is the power you gathered before you entered Bankai. I don't wish you to be harmed, so I am protecting you by increasing your power. My abilities are slightly unusual. Instead of draining power from you to maintain my Bankai, I increase your power as my Bankai is held. I magnify your power, then compress it, then magnify once more. As I compress your power, you have more Riryoku available to produce Reiatsu with. I magnify your Reiatsu, then compress it into your body. The longer you have my Bankai active, the stronger you get, and your body becomes more able to handle the power. I will not let you leave Bankai until you are so strong you enter this state of my Bankai naturally, where my true nature is expressed, rather than the usual state you enter. Your additional power will remain once you leave Bankai, so there is no worry about becoming unable to do so. There is a certain percentage of your power that you instinctively put into Bankai. Until that amount is sufficient to achieve your current state, you are not leaving Bankai. It will only take half an hour or so to do this. My ability to increase your power was increased as you merged with others Zanpakuto, and I gained one other ability in Bankai. The ability to compress others' Reiatsu into your own. If I compressed Byakuya's Reiatsu into your own while she used Bankai, I could use the abilities of Sanbonzakura to scatter, my blade becoming many smaller blades, and even replicate the techniques of Sanbonzakura. Once I am finished strengthening you, I will answer Muramasa's call to me, and we will see who is the stronger of us two. Tensa Zangetsu declares. Understood. I look forward to our battle. I calmly respond, now resolved, my fury contained. I turn and stalk into the building, wrapped in shadows. The warning Muramasa has sent some of his forces to the other worlds. Seek them out and defeat them, Ichigo Tensa Zangetsu says. They are sent to destabilize the balance. Any who would call that a good thing must be defeated, destroyed. They are controlled and must be dealt with. You know where they have gone. Or you can find out from your Senkamen. However, you must be the one to deal with them. No other will be able to deal with this problem. These Zanpakuto, their wielders have only Shikai. However, their wielders will not survive the transit that must be made to the other worlds. You will have to use the Captain's Passage, created by Kido, rather than the Dangai. The Dangai is dangerous, the Valley of Screams is beginning to form. Understood, and my thanks for your aid, I say to Tensa Zangetsu, having turned to face him. Kairaku, go and get the party set up. I need to review Senkamen transit records. Soifan, gather our Kido masters, get them to begin to opening of the tunnel that will let me pass into the other worlds. Also collect all information on the other worlds that can be found that I will need for my mission. Unohana, slow down the formation of the valley if at all possible. Aizen, I know you're listening in on this. Prepare your own forces to contain the blanks should it be needed and see if you can figure out any way, along with Kuritsuchi and Urahara, to stabilize the Dangai. Ichimaru, we're moving up our plans to strike. We get this done tonight, right after the party is over. Then says Anjetsu, keep that to yourself if you have any loyalty at all. I snap orders to my subordinates and allies. Tensa's Anjetsu nods in response to my command, and nods also come from Aizen, Unohana, and Kairaku. Soifan snaps a salute and vanishes into Shunpo, beginning her mission immediately, as Unohana heads to the nearby Sinkamen gate of her division to begin work with her Kido. Kairaku heads inside as I head over to Ichimaru, who just appeared at the door of the fourth with a few members of her strike team. She salutes as well, a grin on her face. Well, Yamamoto Satecho, looks like you're taking to your new role like a fish to water, Ichimaru-chan says. I'll get my team ready immediately, she continues as she vanishes inside the building and begins to give orders to her strike team. I head towards the building myself, finally getting to go inside and get a little rest before everything is cast into chaos as plans are put into action. Ready to leave, Sir Soifan asks me. I am clad in full armor, carrying my Zanpakuto, and fully armed with every nasty trick and weapon the 12th could prepare for me. There is no way that the Gate 13 is allowing its Itacho to go into danger unprepared. Ready as I'll ever be, I respond. Raijin jacket is already drawn, ready to be unleashed. The passage opens, a tunnel into the otherworlds, a maelstrom of color and chaos. I enter the tunnel and vanish from the Seireitei in a flicker of Shunpo, going forth into the otherworlds. I appear in the middle of a glowing circle, somewhere in Japan, near a traditional Japanese home by the looks of it. The circle flashes, and 4 women appear there as well, one in a blue dress, one in white, another in black, and the last in red. Nearby, a red-haired boy is being attacked by a blue-clad warrior with a lance, and I respond. Reduce all creation to smoldering ash, Raijin Jaka I order, and the blade bursts into flame, fire sweeping forth with a wave of my blade, seeking to incinerate the spearmen, as well as blocking off the women, who I now notice are carrying blades. I flicker into Shunpo, appearing in front of the spearman as he strikes at the boy. The circle flashes once more behind me, but I resolutely ignore it. I have a fight to win. Interesting weapon. What type is it? Anti-unit, anti-army, anti-fortress, the spearman asks. Anti-universe, I respond, and the spearman stumbles, his face a mask of shock. Raijin Jaka's flames are the flames that reduce the universe to smoldering ash. You have struck at one weaker than you. Now I will return the favor and show you precisely how outclassed you are when you face me, I say. On the nearby road, I notice 2 more people, one of them carrying a pair of blades, the other with several gemstones in hand, both of them wearing red and black clothing. They are a problem for later. I seal Raijin Jaka and draws Abimaru. This blade is anti-fortress, but it will suffice to kill you, I say. Oh really? Going to use an anti-fortress noble phantasm against me, are you? Sure, I won't dodge it, or does it have some side effect that will help you protect your master? By your use of blades, I'm guessing your saber, though there seems to be 4 others, from the looks of those other 4 that were summoned along with you. I'm Lancer, by the way, Lancer declares. I care little for his name. He will die, and that will be that. Ow, Zabimaru, I say, and the blade takes on its Shikai form. Bankai. What? What the hell is Bankai, Lancer asks, then a tornado of power whips up around me. Heihio Zabimaru, I roar triumphantly. The hissing roar of the massive bone serpent sounds as the tornado clears, leaving me clearly visible, ready to wield my Bankai. Hakatsu Taiho, I command, and the blast of red energy roars forth. Lancer dodges, but just barely, and I catch him with a swing of the serpent, the side of its head catching him and flinging him into a nearby house, smashing an entire side of the house. What the hell is that thing, he shouts as he picks himself out of the rubble. Heihio Zabimaru. My Bankai, the fully released power of my sword. This is the true form of my blade, Lancer, I respond calmly. Prepare to die. Hakatsu Taiho, the red energy beam roars forth once more and annihilates the place where Lancer was standing, having leaped onto the road after he picked himself up. He dodges once more, but another Hakatsu Taiho is already incoming. Damn it. This is not the kind of fight I like, he says after he dodges again and sees the immense bone serpent coming down on his head. Oh, hell. Heihio Zabimaru flattens him into the pavement, the whole weight of its immense head slamming him into the ground. He somehow vanishes though and appears a few meters away a second later. I had to astralize to avoid that, damn it, he curses. Then he notices Heihio Zabimaru sweeping in again, striking hard. Then I continue the strike, playing a game of pinball with Lancer as the ball, slamming him into every nearby object. Benches, street signs, cars, buildings were available, trees, and a few other things. I see the red-clad warrior I noticed earlier on the street wincing in sympathy at Lancer's predicament, and his companion just looks terrified. The 4 women I saw summoned earlier are surrounding the little group, blades drawn and wearing armor. I glance at them, find myself extremely unimpressed with their Reiatsu, and return to smashing Lancer. Just finish him off already. Stop playing with your opponent, the red-clad girl shouts at me, getting over her terror of my 4 assumed comrades. I glance at Lancer, then casually seals Abimaru back into its katana form, then join the boy that was being attacked, who even now is speaking with the red-clad girl and my new comrades. What the hell? Why am I alive? I hear Lancer groan out. I turn back to him, my gaze disdainful. I didn't feel like killing you. Don't make me change my mind, Lancer, I command, and he nods weakly as he drags himself up, spear vanishing as he does. He flees, running as far away as he can, as fast as he can, probably to recover. He'll return to cause trouble again, but I'll deal with him then. For now, I require an explanation of this mess. Sparing an enemy, one of the 4 women, clad in a black dress and wielding a blade sheathed in shadows, asks herself. Her tone is full of disgust. Lancer is not a viable threat. Hihio's Abimaru is in no way my strongest weapon, and his power levels were far too low for him to be any kind of serious problem, I say. Remember, this is an Ichigo who has even more Reiatsu than he normally does, and he will likely disdain opponents with much lower Reiatsu until they prove themselves because of the simple facts he's used to. Reiatsu decides a lot of Shinigami battles, and he's used to that fact from both his lifetimes. Lancer might still be a viable threat to him unless he goes all out with a Bankai. Oh really? What is your strongest weapon? Another of the 4 asks. They look identical to each other, almost, except for their dresses. Then I notice 3 other women I didn't bother to notice before, who had probably appeared in the second flash of light from the circle, which I had barely paid any attention to. One of them looks like the previous 4, wearing a silver and gold dress, but the other 2 are different. One is blonde, wearing golden armor, her eyes are red as blood, and space is rippling behind her. The last one is red-haired, wears leather armor, with clearly defined but not overly evident muscles. One other person is here, but hiding their presence. Zanka no Tachi. Anti-universe type weapon, I inform them, and there are gasps of shock. Anti-universe, the red-clad girl asks weakly as her knees buckle from the shock. I nod in affirmation, drawing Raijin Jaka. Is that this Zanka no Tachi? How does it work? By what means does it unleash its power, she asks, gathering herself visibly. This is Raijin Jaka. Its Bankai is Zanka no Tachi. It unleashes flames that turn everything to ash when it's in Bankai. Water, stone, stars, darkness, light, even electricity. All things are reduced by the flames of Zanka no Tachi, I inform her, and she pales even further, if that is possible. All things save the wielder of this blade burn under the wrath of Zanka no Tachi, which may reduce all of creation to smoldering ash, I say. So it imposes a rule upon the universe, and that rule is as simple as all things are burned to ash, she asks, voice shaking for a moment. Exactly. All things burn before these flames. I have one other anti-universe weapon. Daiguren Hyorinmaru, the Bankai of Hyorinmaru. Its rule is that all things are locked in ice. All things freeze, I inform her. Fire is frozen. Stars are frozen. Even time itself is frozen. Everything, physical or not, is locked in ice, I declare. I see. What an immensely powerful noble phantasm, she says, visibly gathering herself. Now, which class are you? Saber, archer, lancer, rider, assassin, caster, or a berserker that's not using mad enhancement, she asks. I draw on what Lancer said and respond with his assumption. Saber. Is it not obvious, I ask coldly, determined to bluff my way through this until I get some damned answers. What do you mean by class, Tasaka-san? And what is a noble phantasm, the boy asks, and I mentally thank him. He just gave me a route to the knowledge I need to deal with the situation. Perhaps we should go inside. If you're that ignorant, this may take a while to explain, Emiya-kun, Tasaka says. 2 hours later, after many long explanations. So I summoned 8 servants, Shiro asks the empty air. But I don't even know how I did that. Sure, I might have the ability to support them, but how did I do that? When I found Kiritsugu's journals, I didn't learn how to do something like that. I learned how to awaken my true circuits and how to use runes and alteration, but I didn't learn to do something like this, he says frantically, trying to deny this. Tasaka is glaring at him in fury over his perceived luck. Is there any way for you to have the power to do something like this, Tasaka asks him venomously. If it's a question of power, maybe. When I was first using alteration and structural analysis, I accidentally analyzed the nerves I used to turn into artificial circuits, somehow turned them into real circuits of the A++ quality of my 27 original circuits, and started a cascade reaction that left me regenerating my nervous system. I did, however, destroy one of my arms in the process, as well as one of my eyes, and spent 3 months recovering. Someone named Maram Solomon from the church helped me with this. He somehow brought divine beasts into existence and bound them into the shape of my eye and my limbs. I spent 3 months recovering, somehow regenerating my missing nervous system. He said he did this for me because he was interested in what I would do with them, given my own power. But I never learned how to use this, so I can only unbind the creatures and send them forth to do battle for me, and some basic magic Shiro says. Yu Tasaka looks about to strangle him. So much power, and no ability to use it, she hisses through clenched teeth, looking as if she is in actual physical pain. 2 divine beasts at your command, more magic circuits of high quality than I care to count, and sufficient power to summon and support 8 servants, and you don't know how to use it, she screams at him. No, Shiro answers, and her head sinks into his hands. Who are the 8 of you, by the way, he asks us. The one in the blue dress responds first. King Arthur, King of Knights, she responds, and I silently curse historians. Who the hell got her legend wrong, and how the hell did they somehow manage to do it? She is clearly female, despite being able to possibly pass as a male. Maybe. From a distance. Queen Arturia, the Queen of Knights, the look-alike of King Arthur who is wearing a white dress, says, and my head sinks into my hands. Alternate versions of one person. Great, just great. Hello headache, I'm Ichigo. Not glad to meet you. King Arturia, the tyrant of knights, the one in the black dress, says. Nero, Empress of Rome, and probably the ancestor of these 3, the one in the practically see-through red dress, says. She has no sense of shame, apparently. I hear Tasaka groan in pain and share a long-suffering look with her. Queen Arturia, the Queen of Dragons. I carry draconic blood, and I held true to that blood rather than my human blood, giving Britain over to my brethren to keep them from being exterminated, the one in the silver and gold dress says. I'm Saber, just like my 3 counterparts, the samurai, and my ancestor, she explains. Skathath, servant caster, the one who previously didn't reveal herself, says. Her build is slender, but she is obviously strong, several weapons with glowing runes etched on them visible, and she wears heavy armor. Could you please increase the flow of mana to us? Master Shiro closes his eyes for a second, then I feel some other energy flooding my being, strengthening me. Apparently, given where I arrived, and since I'm dead, I got thrown in with this lot. So be it, as long as it doesn't interfere with my work, I could care less if I'm fighting in this Grail war. Skathath nods in satisfaction at the increased energy flow, then the red-haired warrior introduces herself. Alexandra the Great, Queen of Conquerors, rider, she declares, and my jaw drops. What the hell? How did the historians get something like that wrong? I vow to eradicate all historians for this mistake and causing me this immensely irritating headache with their lies. Ilgamish of Uruk, Queen of Heroes, Saber the last one, says, and I am very thankful for my helm being on. This is a bit of a shock for me, but I vow to endure. Somehow, I will endure this shock. I decide to introduce myself, just to get this over with. Denpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, I declare, and looks of shock suddenly appear on the faces of all but the King of Knights. Given Tasaka's explanation of how servants find out about others who they were born before, I guess they just learned of my legend, such as it is. Tasaka's red-clad archer is looking at me warily now, clearly feeling how dangerous I could be to him if he becomes my foe. So that's why you were unconcerned about Lancer. You have the power to annihilate almost any servant that isn't one of those here, possibly excluding Tasaka's archer, Gilgamesh says, nodding as things fall into place for her. Amiya Shiro, what are your ideals? Tasaka's archer asks warily. I have my suspicions about him, and I think they're about to be confirmed. To save everyone I can, but not to save everyone. To save everyone is impossible, and I cannot spend my life in a futile quest. I saw what that did to Kiritsugu, and his last wish was for me to never let myself follow that path. He wished me to do 2 things. First, save everyone I can save, but don't try and save more than is possible. Give up on 10 to save 100 if need be. But his most important wish was that I not throw my life away. He told me that if it was a choice between saving myself and saving even 1,000 others, to save myself so I could help others later, rather than going down in a blaze of glory and ending my ability to help, Shiro explains. Not great, but I suppose it's the best I could hope for, the red archer says. Servant archer. While I was alive, I was known as Amiya Shiro, adopted son of Amiya Kiritsugu, he declares. I was right about who he was apparently. He resembled Shiro enough that guessing his identity wasn't hard. Tasaka is looking between the pair of them, face a mask of shock. Amiya-kun becomes a heroic spirit, she gets out barely. Yes. I am Amiya Shiro, the heroic spirit version of our master declares. Tasaka faints in shock, and I begin to laugh as at least one thing goes right tonight. My master rises and heads towards Tasaka, but I wave him off, activating Nejibana's Shikai and blasting her in the face with a torrent of water, then sheathing the blade once more. What the hell, she screams, shaking her head. Yamamoto, how dare you, she trails off as she sees one of my hands drop to Ryujin Jaka. Archer, how dare you not tell me your name, she roars at him, and he cringes. Emiya, we need to register you as a master with the church. Let's go, and bring your servants with you, she commands. The air grows very warm as I begin to draw Raijin Jaka. Can we please go and register you, Emiya-kun, she corrects herself, and I sheathe the blade. Yes, we might as well go and register our master as a participant in the war, Gilgamesh says arrogantly. I nod in assent, and the little group that we form rises as all but King Arthur vanish into our spirit forms. I figured out the little trick fairly quickly. Shiro is giving me the ability to make myself known on the physical plane, but I can still return to the spiritual plane I am native to, if I try. Shiro, Arthur says. Might we find some way to distinguish myself and my counterparts from each other, she asks. Of course. You're the one this world knows about, so you can stay Saber. Your counterpart in the white dress can be, he trails off trying to figure out proper names for the other three. Might I suggest Joan for the white one, and Ryu for the Queen of Dragons, sir, I asks, materializing for a moment. He nods in affirmation, and then decides on the name for the last of the 4 versions of King Arthur. And the last of you can be Alter, he says cheerfully, and my head sinks into my hands once more. Could I please have a more creative master? But I must make do with this one, so I will do so, no matter how irritating his lack of creativity is. We head out the door, ready to re-enter the material world and fight if need be. An hour later, we arrive at the church, which exudes a foul Ryatsu. Master, may I please annihilate this building, I ask, and am turned down as Alter and Shiro enter the building while the rest of us wait, weapons at the ready. A few minutes later, I lose patience with them and draw Raijin Jaka as I materialize. Tasaka was supposed to make this a quick meeting, not one that takes forever. Ichigo, could you? Joan trails off as I wordlessly activate Raijin Jaka's Shikai. Hopefully, her name will make others think she is Joan of Arc for a while, and a moment of deception will be all we need. Bankai, I command, and the level of heat in the area skyrockets. I see Shiro, the priest, Alter, Tasaka, and Archer at the door of the church as I activate Bankai, and mentally curse. Zanka no Tachi, I say as flames wrap around me. Master, thank you for keeping your meeting short, I say through gritted teeth. No problem, Shiro asks the empty air as I turn and stalk away. About halfway back to his house, we run into a white-haired, red-eyed midget who apparently knows Shiro, and I raise Raijin Jaka, which I had resealed but not sheathed. Hello, Ani-chan, the midget say, bowing politely. Who's your friend, she questions. I sense another presence waiting nearby, so I decide to just get this battle started, since she's probably a master. Servant Saber. Now, let's get around to the fight, midget, I growl, Haori and robes being stirred by a wind. I begin to gather power for the purposes of battle, and draw Sanbonzakura as I sheathe Raijin Jaka. Bankai, I declare, dropping the blade into the ground. Clumsy, Ani-chan. Dropping your weapon like that, the midget trails off as the corridor of blades rises behind me. Behind her, a massive black warrior, eyes filled with unreasoning rage, appears, blade at the ready. A massive stone blade, fire burning on its edge. Scatter. Sanbonzakura Kage Ashi, I command, and the blades dissolve into countless millions of smaller blades. Pretty flowers, Ani-chan, but they won't stop Berserker. He's the strongest hero of Greece, the girl proclaims. Hercules. I see. Well, I am obliged to inform you that these aren't only blossoms, midget. They're blades as well, and all that will be left is blood and dust, I say, and the wave of blade sweeps forwards, engulfing Hercules. Decay, Sanbonzakura Kage Ashi, the blades swarm together upon this command, and then withdraw to once more hover around me. Only a bloodstain remains where Hercules once was, then I see something that shouldn't be possible. Hercules is reappearing. Not materializing, but regenerating from a bloodstain. Hercules has 12 lives, Ani-chan, the midget tells me. I'm a Yazviel von Einsborn, by the way, but you can call me Ilya, she tells me happily as my fellow servants prepare for battle. My master controls 7 servants besides me. 2 of my weapons are X-rank, anti-universe noble phantasms, and 3 more of them are X-rank anti-world, I tell her, and she goes pale. I draw Hineko and stab it into the ground, flooding it with power. Bankai, Kazuneko, I say, and ash clouds billow forth as the blade sinks into the ground, cracks spreading from where I stabbed it into the road. Lava bursts forth, then I direct it towards Berserker, covering him in molten rock. I am slowly being supplied with knowledge as I acclimatize to the servant system which I am trapped in for the duration of the Grail War, and Kazuneko is an ex-anti-world at full power, which I had guessed, but it confirmed by the new knowledge I gained during that walk. You stand no chance, Ilya-chan, I declare proudly. Berserker rips himself free from the lava, skin burned nearly away, only to be engulfed by deadly clouds of ash, and killed for the second time. Behind me, caster has drawn a rune marked two-handed blade. Rider has summoned a chariot pulled by 6 immense bulls, 2 of which have lightning crackling around them, 2 more are wrapped in shadows and made of bone, darkness replacing flesh, and the last 2 cause the earth to shake every time their hooves slam down upon it. Bulls blessed by Poseidon, Zeus, and Hades. This rider must have had a great legend indeed when she lived, to be so blessed in death. Ryu has summoned an immense black dragon breathing flame and vaults onto its back, sword drawn with one hand, the other hand carrying a shield. Nero is now clad in the armor of a Roman general, sword in one hand, raising a legionary's tower shield in the other. Dione is wielding a blade around which light seems to distort the image of it, and if you look too closely, then the light brightens, blinding you. Gilgamesh is clad in her golden armor, with 2 rips in space forming behind her as 2 blades come forth, which she grabs, ready for battle. Alter and Saber are both clad in their armor, and Shiru is missing one eye. I hear a shrieking roar from above, and a massive bird, made of lightning and darkness, descends from the storm now forming above us. It lands, and Shiru climbs onto its back, using some form of magic to either summon or create a sword. It is a mundane blade, but it will serve to protect him against anything that isn't a servant that he may encounter, and if he does run into a servant, he can summon us. Archer has his bow in his hands, an immense bow made of blades formed into the shape of a bow, clearly a noble phantasm of archers. Berserker, kill the Milia screams, and Berserker charges. Ash clouds and a wave of blossom surge forward from me, as a pillar of lava engulfs Berserker, summoned by Kazuneko. He roars forth from the lava, almost unharmed, but still burns slightly as the blossoms and ash engulf him, cutting into his hide, but not annihilating him. He must gain some sort of immunity to attacks that have already killed him. Interesting, I'm used to myself, as I fall back and let Rider's chariot charge through, running him over, trampling him into the ground. Behind her, the immense dragon Ryu is riding strikes, claw, fang, and fire ripping into Berserker. He is slain for the 3rd time by the dragon's tail smashing his head into a pulp, then he regenerates and catches the tail when it comes in again, throwing the dragon back. He held the sky in his legend, it's not surprising he can throw a dragon back, no matter how big. Berserker, retreat Ilya. Calls, and he vanishes as he astralizes, reappearing at her side and leaving with her on his shoulders, getting out of the area as fast as possible. Sticking around with 9 servants making a dedicated attempt to kill you, only one of which has used any noble phantasms, is a very bad idea, no matter who you were. We allow him to go, falling back to guard Shiru and Tasaka. Our orders are not to pursue a retreating foe, so I will not do so. Yet, though that may very well change if the situation is altered. Well, that went well, Tasaka says calmly as we walk away from the area where we confronted Berserker. I only used 2 of my noble phantasms, though one was an anti-world noble phantasm when used at full power I say, relieved I didn't have to go further than that. 2 anti-universe weapons, and 3 anti-world. Those are very nearly a complete game breaker, and throwing in Gilgamesh and the other servants in Emiya-kun's service, this war is as good as one, Tasaka says. So, what would you wish for, Emiya-kun? I think I'll wish for the ability to use the 5 true magics, as if I had them as natural abilities, and make my projections perfect copies, rather than very good ones. Maybe even throw in the ability to comprehend anything with structural analysis. I could understand something of Heiho's Abimaru, but Kazuneko was impossible for me to understand even vaguely. I apparently can't comprehend anti-world weapons, Shiru complains. So advancing your power to higher levels. I can respect it, Tasaka says grudgingly. Shiru nods, and I start thinking about my own wish. Shiru decides to take a look at the Ryudu temple, just to see how the Li lines that converge there are acting now that the Grail is active. As we pass, I casually raise one armored hand, and lightning begins to spark around it as I prepare to test the wards, just in case. This is prime territory for a caster, after all. Pado number 88. Hiryu Jekazoku Shinton Raiho I say, and a skyscraper-sized blast of electricity erupts from the tips of my fingers, an immense blast that if not halted by wards, will engulf and annihilate the mountain. My Reiatsu control is insufficient to successfully make it much smaller than that now that Zanjetsu has increased my power dramatically. The lightning crashes into the wards, and they appear as a solid dome of force around the mountain. My Heido pushes at them, devastates them, drains their power to almost nothing, but is unsuccessful in breaking them. I nod, knowing how much power I need to get through those wards now, and will break them at some future point just in case. How the hell are you not caster? Tasaka asks in shock, face white. Your noble phantasms have a lot of magic-related attacks, and that bit of magic was immensely powerful. How close did you come to breaking those wards? She demands to know. I decide to humor her and answer, just because I feel like it. I'm Saber because I'm better with my blades than Kido. I came very close to breaking those wards, but put a little less power than needed into the Kido. I only used the absolute minimum power to cast that spell, after all, I tell her, and Tasaka goes so pale, she's almost transparent. Absolute minimum power, she asks. I nod in affirmation, and she collapses, fainting from shock. So, Shira drew a very good card when he summoned you, Saber says quietly, and I nod. Your sword skills must be substantial if you are that powerful with your magic. I was a captain of the Gate 13. I was known as a prodigy and was at high levels of power for a captain when I lived, but still a captain level fighter, and that level of power was expected from a captain. I doubt my legend is from this world, but I answered the call anyways. Let's hope things get more interesting. I don't want to be fighting at my current level, that of a mere seated officer of the 8, forever, after all, I say, and the others nod. Well, this Grail War should be a good bit of exercise for later battles, and may even be interesting. These heroic spirits can hurt me, regardless of Reiatsu level difference, so I have valid opponents, and I will get a good chance to prepare for war with this. New noble phantasms are being introduced for this chapter. Notes. I misrank 0, which upon reflection, I feel should be an A rank, with possibility to upgrade to XN anti-world once Ichigo's hollow abilities become stronger. We will be seeing Ichigo's hollow in the next few chapters, probably once things start heating up. For the servants who didn't make an appearance during the last chapter, along with the masters, I apologize if you wanted to see them, but I couldn't find a way to easily fit them in without making it longer than I felt like making it. Now, onto the noble phantasms. Presence concealment is less effective if Saber is actively using any mana, however Saber may blend his power into the background mana to conceal himself. Since the hole in his soul is partially fixed by bonding with more Zanpakuto, he has sufficient Reiatsu control to hide his mana, which he couldn't do in canon. Zangetsu. The dark moon of death, the shadow moon bound by the chains of heaven. An extremely powerful Zanpakuto, this blade constantly focuses on making its wielder stronger, as is reflected by Zangetsu's Bankai. He magnifies the Reiatsu of his wielder when in Bankai, constantly making his wielder stronger, and it is in fact difficult by now for Saber to leave the Bankai state when he uses Tensa Zangetsu. By compressing Reiatsu, Tensa Zangetsu actually has a negative upkeep cost, so Saber has to exert his power to leave Bankai. Bankai acts as an combat multiplier, allowing Saber to take basic skills to extreme heights. Zangetsu's deepest desire is to protect Saber, and does this in only one fashion. By annihilating everything and anything that could harm Saber. Zangetsu is partially a Kido-type blade due to this desire, as having only one skill, that of melee combat, would make him ineffective when it comes to pursuing this desire. At full power, Zangetsu may rend the universe asunder, destroying even the heavens themselves to protect Saber. Zangetsu can be fully sealed, but despises not being in a released state. Ranks. AA, Anti-Unit Fortress, Shikai. X, Anti-Universe, Bankai. Note. Saber meant to hold Zangetsu back just in case he needed the surprise of another anti-universe noble phantasm. Manifested stats for Zangetsu are Strength A+, Agility X, Mana A++, Luck B, and Endurance A. He will also have Battle Continuation A, Mad Enhancement B, Knight of Honor C, Bravery A, Eternal Arms Mastery B, Charisma A, Eye of the Mind, True A, and Child of Darkness B. Child of Darkness B. A personal ability of Zangetsu's. As the dark moon that brings absolute destruction upon the foes of his master, Zangetsu was born from deepest darkness, only the chains of heaven binding his thirst to destroy his master's foes. Born with a desire for vengeance against hollows, this has become an ability that makes Zangetsu stronger against fellow creatures of darkness or wielders of demonic weapons, raising all abilities by one level. Zangetsu also gets this raise in stats against those who wield holy weapons, due to the fact that they oppose darkness, and Zangetsu also gains Preferred Enemy A against the users of holy weapons. Preferred Enemy A. When Zangetsu gains this ability by facing the Children of Light, his true power is unbound, heaven's chains upon his malevolent might undone during the battle. All holy weapons have their power reduced by half, and demonic or dark weapons have their strength raised by 1 rank. Zangetsu's strength and agility becomes X, and he gains limited precognition against the wielders of holy weaponry. He may see their next 3 moves, and will be able to counter them easily. All of his opponent's stats are reduced by 1 rank, and they must fight against the darkness that accompanies Zangetsu's presence. Should they fail in fighting off the dark influence of Zangetsu, the malevolence of the shadows that Zangetsu rules, their weapon will become a demonic weapon, and their mind will be seized by the shadows. Zangetsu is deeply devoted to his master, however he will annihilate without a second thought anyone and anything who can endanger Ichigo. Hyoka Sagetsu. The absolute illusion born in the moonlight. At full power, this Zanpakuto may rewrite reality to bend to her users' desires. extremely powerful, allows her wielder to make extremely complex plots and carry them out by using her illusions and hypnotic abilities to either implant subconscious commands in the enemy's mind or trick them, leading them into a fatal trap. Ranks. C. Anti-unit, fully sealed. B. Anti-army, Shikai. Low rank is due to the fact that her melee abilities are not substantial when in Shikai. X. Anti-world, Bankai. Manifested stats are Strength C, Agility B, Luck A, Endurance B, and Mana B+. Other abilities are Charisma A, Keto usage rank A, allowing the use of any Keto number 99 or lower, for half the normal mana cost, Absolute Illusions X, Eye of the Mind, True A, and Child of the Moon B. Child of the Moon. D. A personal ability of Kyoka Sujetsu. As the caster of illusions, Kyoka Sujetsu was born from the moonlight. Her nature is ephemeral, and perceiving her power is all but impossible for any but the most skilled. She wields illusions as naturally as breathing, manipulating the senses of her enemies with the greatest ease. Against those allied with the sun, such as a demigod child of a sun deity, all her abilities are raised by one level, and she is allied to the darkness of night by her nature. She gains preferred enemy A against those armed with holy weapons allied to the light of day, such as Excalibur. Preferred enemy. A. When Kyoka Sujetsu gains this ability by facing the children of the sun and the light of day, her might is unleashed, reality warping as she bends it to her will, casting her illusions upon reality itself, rather than just her foes. Holy weapons allied to the light of day or the sun have their power reduced by half, and darker demonic weapons allied to night or the moon have their strength raised by 1 rank. Her illusions will seek to ensnare the mind of her opponent, and if they cannot resist, they will become trapped in her illusions and come under her control. Kyoka Sujetsu is loyal above all else to Ichigo, though like Zangetsu, will casually kill without a second thought, or even a first thought, anyone who may endanger Ichigo. She is always wary, absolutely determined that her master never fall if she can prevent it from happening. Absolute Illusions. X. Kyoka Sujetsu's ability to affect the world around her with illusions. At this rank, the ability allows her to ensnare even Gaia and her illusions, warping reality and the laws of Gaia as Kyoka Sujetsu sees fit. Only Saber is immune to this ability. Kyoka Sujetsu will unleash this power without a second thought to preserve her master, but without preferred enemy activating, Kyoka Sujetsu may not use this ability to go beyond altering the perceptions of her foes, which is a binding set to attempt to constrain her when she was born from Aizen's soul. Other noble phantasms will be revealed later. Mongrel, how dare you attack me, Gilgamesh imperiously demands. I am on the verge of simply snapping and introducing him to Zangetsu. He has divine heritage, that's holy enough to activate Zangetsu's Child of Darkness. You are as a speck of dust beneath my feet, and yet you persist in your futile attempt to actually damage me, he asks in disbelief. I have steadily been advancing, smashing away every weapon he sent at me, and now I snap and exert my Ryatsu. A massive column of blood-edged shadows roars forth into the sky, and Gilgamesh the king leaps back to avoid the shadows. What is that, Tasaka questions. What the hell are those shadows, she asks when no one answers. Skathath, I notice, is looking almost entranced by the shadows. Alter looks like she's having a religious experience, and Joan has taken a wary step back. Saber is holding her ground, blade at the ready, and Nero seems intrigued by the darkness I summoned. Come forth into this world. Zangetsu, I roar, and the column of shadows coalesces into the shape of a middle-aged man bearing a long black daido, blade crackling with power that desires to be unleashed. Dark glory shrouds Zangetsu, his coat flapping in an invisible wind. His sunglasses have vanished, and in place of them, pits of unending darkness serve as his eyes. I don't know how I can summon him, but I'm glad I can. He raises his blade, glaring at Gilgamesh. Abomination. Child of light and divinity. I am Zangetsu, the dark moon of death. You may ask why I give my name. It is because I wish you to know who will kill you, Zangetsu hisses, absolute hatred for Gilgamesh filling his tone. I know Zangetsu's true nature, but it is still slightly shocking to see it come forth like this. He raises his daido in salute, then vanishes. 100 copies of Zangetsu fill the area in his place. Mongrel, how do you do this? How do you copy yourself? Answer me, Gilgamesh demands. He is very clearly losing what little control he may have had of the situation, and his self-control is vanishing fast. Zangetsu is sufficiently angry with Gilgamesh for attacking me that I don't need to step in. Zangetsu will do the killing in this fight, and I can enjoy a bit of rest. I rejoin the others and seal my Resurrection and Bankai, though I keep my Shikai active. My own speed. You are so slow, you stand still to my eyes, Zangetsu snarls. From pure speed alone, my afterimages become solid clones, ready to slaughter you, he explains. Then a flurry of darkness erupts as 2 blades shoot forth into Gilgamesh's hands, and Zangetsu races forward to strike. Waves of steel erupt out from Gilgamesh the king, forcing the clones back, making them pay attention to their own defense, rather than killing Gilgamesh. One of the blades is gold and shaped like a key. A moment later, it is thrown at one of the clones, which barely avoids it, and the key slams into the ground nearby. The other blade is raised, pointed at the true Zangetsu, who held back when his clones charged. Zangetsu raises his blade as Gilgamesh levels the other sword he grabbed. It is red, with black runic markings decorating the segments of this oddly spherical sword. I hear gasps, and a couple of my fellow servants step back, fear in their auras. "What is that thing?" Shiru asks, and Gilgamesh the king speaks. "Mongrel, this is my greatest treasure. The star of creation that splits the heavens. An anti-world noble phantasm, which will annihilate this child of darkness in a mere second. Behold, and know your fate," Gilgamesh brags. Inuma Elish. Gitsuga. Tenshu Zangetsu states flatly, and brings his Daido down. A wave of all-consuming darkness erupts from the blade, which meets the spiraling wave of energy brought forth for me. The two waves of power are halted by each other, struggling for dominance. "What? How? I am using E at full power, and you hold it back. Mongrel, how dare you?" Gilgamesh roars. "Your weapon may merely destroy a world," Zangetsu says. "To me, that is nothing. A flicker of power, barely noticeable. I am the embodied spirit of an anti-universe noble phantasm, brought forth to destroy you. Perish. My Jitsuga Tenshu will claim your life." Zangetsu says this in the tone of someone merely stating a fact, and the darkness intensifies, overwhelming the Enuma Elish and consuming Gilgamesh. He soars out of the cloud of darkness that consumes Gilgamesh, but when the shadows clear, nothing else is left of the King of Heroes. He revolves end over end, then lands with a thud in Shiru's hand, which he had raised defensively against Asaka. Shiru stares at it blankly, but Asaka goes pale as she realizes, a second after he lands in Shiru's hand, that it is pointed at her. She steps back very carefully, hands trembling as she reaches for a jewel. "My thanks for your aid, Zangetsu," I say, and he nods in assent, then vanishes, the area instantly becoming lighter, gravity pressing down less. Joan breathes a sigh of relief, as does Saber, but Alter has a smile on her face that I think will need to be removed surgically, her eyes locked on me. "Why does he remain?" Emiya asks, wary of the blade. "Shouldn't it have vanished with Gilgamesh?" he questions. Emiya Hana shakes her head, as she and her companion walk over to join us. He is in Hana's hand as well, though she keeps her hand by her side. "No. Gilgamesh's Gate of Babylon still exists in this world, and so long as the key survived, someone could access it. It remained because it left Gilgamesh's hands before he was struck down. The moment it left the Gate of Babylon, it was once more a valid existence in this world. It will remain in this world permanently now, rather than have its existence degraded along with that of Gilgamesh. Use it well." Emiya she trails off in a clear question. "Shiru. Emiya Shiru is my name. So he is mine. I'm stuck with an anti-world noble phantasm now," he questions, and Hana nods. "Indeed. I'm Saber, by the way, and my companion is Lancer. We'll forge a contract with you, since we had a disagreement with our last master over the proper target for his hormones and the correct usage of command seals," Hana explains. "And who was your master?" Tasaka asks warily, he still pointed at her by Shiru. "That you, Shinji. There was one other summoned along with us, but she remained with his sister, who had summoned us initially, then was forced to hand us over to her brother's control." Hana snarls in hatred. "He's still alive, his grandfather was able to keep us from killing him. All we could do was sever the contract and run. Something has gone wrong with the Grail War, and we found out what not too long ago. A divine spirit has woken and turned the Grail to his purposes. Entertain him with the battles of the war, and he will personally guarantee an extra wish to the victors. He didn't give us his identity, and I don't care to guess, but he did say he was responsible for multiple servants being summoned by each master. First a Grail-backed summons, then he backs a second summons of even more heroic spirits, so that he can be entertained by a war of proper scale." She growls. "What? A divine spirit? Awake. We need to inform the Mages Association immediately, this is a catastrophe," Tasaka says frantically. "Something here is wrong," I muse as I try and figure this situation out. First a god wakes, then a heroic spirit with X-rank divinity is called. I can't help but think that something in this situation has been altered for another party's amusement or benefit, I say. Zelrich, Hana and Emiya agree instantly, speaking at the same time. "He would do something like this," they continue. "Then if I meet him, I'll kill him for causing me trouble," I proclaim as I sheath Zangetsu and Raijin Jaka, now certain no other threat is present. The male version of Lancer is standing outside the church now, looking at Skathath. "No, you're not seeing things, Hound," she says. "Oh, and I'm Servant Caster," she tells him. He goes pale at this revelation and faints, collapsing to the ground. I look at him. I look at Skathath. I look at his female counterpart and then Scathath, myself, and the female version of Lancer, who I decide to call Ansurco until further notice, collapse onto the ground, laughing. "Well, what is so funny?" a voice asks from inside the church. I look up and see the one who is apparently the priest here. I run through an automatic mental checklist when I see him. Smile that makes him look kind while masking an interior self that is supremely manipulative and dark. Check. Brown hair that appears to be deliberately messy. Check. Style of clothing. Check. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Excuse me, do you mind if I perform a small test? It won't hurt a bit and it will clear up a small worry I have. All I require is a bit of your blood to perform the test, I ask politely, though I will insist if need be. Of course, Servant. Saber. I am Servant Saber in this Grail War, and you would be, I ask warily now, blade drawn and at my side. Kodaman Kirei, he responds calmly, approaching me with one hand held out. I raise my blade, which I notice is Zanpakuto, and run it across his hand, drawing blood very slightly, just enough to collect a little on the edge of the blade. The river of life, 1,000 hearts beat as one, 5 names, test of time, the heart of the ancients. Bakuto number 3, Keiko no Kentei, test of the past I declare, and stretch out a glowing green finger, and the blood on my blade flashes. The name Kodaman Risei appears above the blade, linked by green light to the names Kodaman Shizune and Sasuke-san. I close my eyes and curse my luck. What do those names mean? Kirei asks. They are your ancestors in the paternal line, which is what I was testing for. Kirei, I must speak with you. There are certain things you must know about your heritage, I tell him. I see no reason why we cannot speak here, Kirei responds. I sigh, then begin the explanation of Shinigami, the Seireitei, and everything else he will need to know. I see, he says 3 hours later. We have retreated inside the church so I may give the explanation in full, and he was listening intently the entire time. Why, though, are you telling me this, he asks. Your grandfather, Sasuke-san, was a captain of the Gatei 13 before we entered a state of rebellion and had turned traitor himself shortly before the Gatei rebelled. He allied with a rancor and established dominance over Hueco Mundo. He is currently allied with us, and I am required to bring you with me when I return to the Seireitei before being dispatched once more to deal with the tiny matter of other Zanpakuto spirits elsewhere in the otherworlds. Will you come quietly, I ask. I will, he guarantees, and I silently sigh in relief. What is his Zanpakuto, might I ask? Kirei questions me politely. Taioka Sagetsu. She's also one of mine. I did explain my unique circumstances to you, right, I ask, and receive a negative response from Kirei. I begin the explanation, and once more all ears are attending to my speech. Interesting, Kirei muses another half-hour later when I finally finish my second explanation. He has quite eagerly been wringing technical details out of me on how our powers work and is apparently deep in thought. You are creatures of death, and I have found that I can only find happiness in this life through the suffering of others, he admits, and I groan. More damned complications, but at least this isn't too unusual for the living children of Shinigami. Not that uncommon. You are naturally a being of death, so to be satisfied with life is deeply unnatural for you. You'll come when we reach the Seireitei, I say. Thank you, Kirei responds. Will I be allowed to train as a Shinigami? Naturally. We need everyone we can get right now. You'll be trained, you'll probably attain rank quickly, since Aizen still has influence, and you'll of course be expected to be a prodigy. You'll have a lot of work ahead of you, Kirei. And since I discovered you, I'm responsible for you, so I'll be sponsoring you through the academy as well. Don't let me down, I say. Understood, Taicho, Kirei says, giving a genuine smile. I sought a path that would allow me to know happiness in life. Now, however, you offer me a realm where I do not have to stray from the beliefs I was raised with to know happiness. I will not disappoint you, sir, he states, and I nod. He'll do, given a little time to grow into his heritage. I'll have to abandon this body to move on properly, correct, he asks. I nod. Start putting a plan together to get your death underway and this divine spirit dealt with. Now, let's get some sleep, I order, and suit actions to words, promptly falling asleep where I sit, a skill most valuable indeed. The next morning. Everyone well rested, I ask casually. I just woke up and there is another person here who has white hair, golden eyes, and is wearing a set of blue and white robes. And who would this be, I ask warily. My daughter, Karen Kodaman, Kirei responds. She and Amiya Shiru, as in the master, not the archer class servant, were engaged not 5 minutes ago, he says. How, I ask, already wanting this day to be over. There is an old enmity between myself and Kiritsugu, and I want it settled before I depart this world. Shiru has kindly agreed to help me settle this by marrying Karen, Kirei says. I close my eyes and count to 10, then draw Zanpakuto. Allow me to congratulate you on your upcoming wedding, master. I personally feel that the sooner the better should be the tenets of this marriage, don't you? I ask in a tone that is far too cheerful. Maybe, Shiru asks, looking around for help. Hirei, you could put everything together and have them married by nightfall, correct? I ask, and he nods. Master, I suppose it's time you get ready for your upcoming loss of freedom. Why is your daughter here anyways, Kirei? I ask him. She is here on a hunt for a demon that was reported to be nearby, Kirei replies. I will begin preparations. The wedding will be in 4 hours, he declares. Isn't it a bit too soon, Shiru warily asks. I shake my head, grinning behind my helm. I finally get to torment someone else rather than being the tormented. I think I like this feeling, and I could certainly get used to it. It would be a great change from being under the kind of stress I've been under in the last day or so. Bankai, I say, holding out Zanpakuto, point towards the ground, and let the blade drop. It falls into the carpet and is absorbed, a ripple spreading out from the point of impact as I begin my Bankai. What, Shiru asks, astonished by this. Behind me, a corridor of giant blades rises, one by one, slowly emerging from the ground. Scatter, Zanpakuto Kage Ashi, I command, and the blades dissolve into thousands upon thousands of blossoms. Master, I'm sure you've reconsidered and want nothing more than to be married right away. However, it will take time to set up, so just cool your fervor a bit, okay? I ask, and he nods slowly, eyes on the blossoms. One travels by a trailing strand of cloth from Karen's robes and travels right through the cloth a moment later, severing it. Shiru's nod becomes surer. Excellent, I'll keep you company then. Time to introduce you to the joys of Sake, Master, I tell him, sealing Zanpakuto and sheathing the blade. We'll wait until everything is ready if you can provide me with Sake, Kirei, I tell him, and he nods in confirmation. Perhaps his sister and her berserker should be here to attend as well, Kirei asks. His father married a Rizviel von Einsborn, and I believe you've actually met his sister. I'm sure Lancer can keep him occupied with Sake as well as you can, Saber, he says, and I nod. I cast out my power, feeling for the girl I met last night, determined to carry the wedding invitation to Master's loving sister, who will naturally want nothing more than to be present. Some time later, at Einsborn Castle, after Saber spending a couple hours blasting a path through the forest. Knock knock. Jitsuga Tenshu, I say, blasting the doors off their hinges. Inside, I find several servants and Ilya. Hello, Ilya-chan. Berserker-san, and whoever the hell the three of you are, greetings to you as well, I say to the three. All wear Greek battle armor fit for kings. All are tall, proud warriors, one carrying a spear and shield, both simple but well made. Another carries a massive bow, stone arrow nocked. The last one carries a spear in one hand and has a sword at his hip with the symbol of Sparta engraved on his shield, which hangs on his back. Lancer, the one with the spear and shield, declares. The one with the bow is Archer, and the other one is Lancer as well. You obviously know Berserker already, so prepare to die, whoever the hell you are, he orders. I am here as a messenger, Lancer-san. Will you allow me to deliver my message before we fight to the death, I ask, and he nods warily. Ilya-chan, I come to deliver an invitation, and will trade my name for acceptance of this invitation. I am sure it would mean a great deal to my master to have the sister he only recently found out about attend his wedding, I say calmly, and Ilya looks like she just got hit with a brick. Ani-chan is getting married, she shrieks. I nod. Okay, where and when? I may hate him for stealing Kiritsugu, but I refuse to miss my brother's wedding, she states imperiously. Kodaman Church. In 2 hours, I say after checking the sun to determine the general time of day. Please, feel free to bring your servants with you. Not like they'll be able to do much if they want to cause trouble. Among our little band, we have such notable figures as the Queen of Conquerors, the Queen of Knights, the King of Knights, the Queen of Dragons, the Tyrant of Knights, Scathath, Nero, Empress of Rome, the Queen of Heroes, the Queen of Blades, the Hound of Ulster, and myself, Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, I say. The Lancer who challenged me goes pale instantly. As I said, not much even 4 servants can do against someone who wields an anti-universe noble phantasm. Actually, 3 of them. I doubt they would survive long against the sheer power I can bring to bear if they make trouble. However, I personally guarantee your safety, Ilya-chan. You have my word that you will be protected, I swear. Okay, I'll come, but you have to take me shopping afterwards, Ilya says. I nod, agreeing to the deal, and lift her in my arms. Berserker growls, and I roll my eyes, then hand Ilya off to him to carry as Lancer, and Archer form up around me, preparing to travel. I vanish into Shunpo, reappearing at the forest's edge, and wait patiently for them to get over their shock and catch up, then continue, leading them onwards to the church and Shiru's soon-to-be wedding. Amik. Ilya's Lancer versus Ichigo. No, you won't be delivering any message to Ilya, Lancer says. I casually draw Kai no Ti no Megami and deflect an arrow from Archer. Okay, if you insist. Bakuto number 61, Rikujakoro, I say, and 6 rods of light restrain Lancer. With a simple flare of power, I send Lancer flying, and he slams into the stairs hard. Remember, you chose to do it this way. I'm sorry, and I'll probably never forgive myself, but so be it, I tell him sadly. What do you mean? Lancer growls. Ilya is stopping the other servants from attacking, so I won't have to worry about interference. Song of a Thousand Faces, Light of New Eyes, Be Born, Be Destroyed, Truth and Order, Challenging Heaven, Demonic Fortress, Rest, Wake, Disrupt all existence. Be born anew. Bakuto number 103, Kinenki, Change of Life I say, and green light envelops Lancer. A single scream, swiftly rising in pitch, comes from within the cocoon, then is cut off. I bow my head as the cocoon fades, and a woman clad in Greek battle armor appears. She carries a simple spear and shield, ready for battle. What did you do to me? The transformed Lancer asks. I use a simple keto to create a mirror and she takes one look at it, screams, and faints. Nejibana. The Queen of the Oceans. This Zanpakuto rules all water when fully released, and is able to drown a world and bring forth an ocean in the desert, should Saber wish to do so. Her powers are one of the weapons Saber hoped to keep to himself, however they are evident the moment she is released into Shikai, as even then, Nejibana may bring forth water in any place and drown cities. Nejibana may bring forth the ocean storms to repel her enemies, ripping apart cities with hurricanes if need be. Using her control of water, Nejibana may manipulate the tectonic plates under the ocean to cause earthquakes and possibly volcanic eruptions. Nejibana is in no way subtle in the hands of Saber, as his own immense power combines with her potential to unleash the full force of the oceans upon any foe. Ranks. C. Anti-Unit, fully sealed. A. Anti-ARMY Shikai. X. Anti-World, Bankai. Manifested stats are Strength B, Agility A+, Mana A, Luck C, and Endurance X, due to the fact that the oceans never tire, and Nejibana is the embodiment of the oceans. Abilities are Eternal Arms Mastery B, Stormcaller A, Child of the Oceans B, Divinity C, Warrior of the Oceans B, Eye of the Mind, True B+, and Bringer of Disaster A. Stormcaller AA. Allows Nejibana to summon storms of various intensities by manipulating water in the air. At this rank, Nejibana may unleash storms large enough to cover an entire continent without being restricted to only certain types of storms, as she would be by a lower rank. Nejibana most prefers to unleash immense thunderstorms or blizzards, and the blizzard she summons with this ability can get large enough to bury an entire city, skyscrapers and all, under snow and ice, due to her abilities with water. Thunderstorms, so long as they are accompanied by rain, may do immense damage, Nejibana using the rain to conduct the lightning bolts to her preferred targets, while intensifying the power of the lightning. The lightning bolts may grow powerful enough to vaporize whatever they strike, giving the ability to destroy fortresses as well as armies. Child of the Oceans. B. Nejibana was born from the seas, and is granted immense power by them. Against foes who wield weapons connected to the land or to fire, this ability activates and raises all of Nejibana's stats by 1 level, also giving her preferred enemy A against such foes. The wielders of weapons connected to water have those weapons gain 1 rank in power. She and her wielder both enjoy protection from water X. Protection from water X. At this rank, water cannot harm either Nejibana or her master. Both are able to breathe underwater, and water pressure is of absolutely no concern to either Nejibana or Saber. Water-based weaponry is entirely ineffective against both, and may even boost their stats. Contact with water will speed their healing any wound 4 times faster than normal. Preferred enemy. A. When Nejibana gains this ability by facing those allied to the land or to fire, her full might is released, raising Bringer of Disaster and Child of the Oceans to X, while also cutting the power of all fire or earth-based weapons in half. Any weapons that have their origins in water or are connected to water gain 1 rank in power, while Nejibana gains limited precognition against the wielders of fire or earth-based weaponry. She may see their next 3 moves, which allows her to plan ahead to defeat their attacks. Nejibana's strength and agility become A and X, respectively, and she gains the ability to turn her own form into water. This allows the weapons of the enemy to pass through her, however her weapons are still dangerous to the enemy. Nejibana, having been born from Ichigo's soul in his past life, has known Saber for years and is fully loyal to him, and is slightly obsessive about destroying anything dangerous to him. If Saber stubs his toe on a rock, Nejibana will likely use her powers to destroy the nearest mountain, just in case the rock that hurt Saber came from there, and the mountain might somehow be planning to kill Saber, unlikely as it is. Nejibana is the ocean-given form, and her wrath is eternal, patient and utterly merciless. Facing Nejibana at full power is like trying to stop the tide, futile and likely to get you killed. When at full strength, she may rival Zangetsu in terms of power, so long as Zangetsu is not using Child of Darkness. Warrior of the Oceans. B. May create weapons from water. The created weapons will be D-rank noble phantasms, with the inherent ability to force the water in an opponent's body to drain faster from any cuts that are made by these blades, causing swift blood loss. This ability would be ineffective against those with heritage connected to the oceans, or with a blessing from a god or other being of power connected to water. Bringer of Disaster. A. Allows Nejibana to use her powers to bring about natural disasters to strike at her foes. At this rank, Nejibana is able to unleash Category 3 hurricanes, immense waves up to 100 meters high, earthquakes of magnitude 7.0, and volcanic eruptions on par with Pompeii. Her power over these disasters is immense, allowing her to shape them as necessary. Hazukimaru. The Dragon of the Demon Realm. Born from a desire for war, Hazukimaru is hot-headed and thirsts for battle, only feeling alive when he is an inch from death. He was born of the thirst for war as a demon of battle, acquiring draconic qualities as he gained wisdom and became more than a simple nameless berserker thirsting for blood. He is cunning and dangerous, usually hiding away his best tricks unless he needs them to preserve his life. Ranks. C. Anti-unit. B. Anti-unit. A++, Anti-unit. Manifested stats are Strength A+, Agility A+, Luck A, Endurance A, and Mana A. Other stats are Battle Continuation A, Mad Enhancement B, Child of War B, Blood of the Dragon A, Bravery A, Instinct B, Eye of the Mind, True A, Eternal Arms Mastery B, Blood of the Demon A, and Magic Resistance A. Child of War. B. Hazukimaru is a child of war and death, with bloodlust inherent in his heritage. He was born on a battlefield from a meeting between dragon and demon, and this heritage makes him thirsty for battle and challenge. He will face any worthy foe, but despises fighting those weaker than him, as they are too easy for him to defeat most of the time. Hazukimaru despises pacifists and against those uncommitted to battle, preferring to avoid fights, or those whose legend involves only a single war. Hazukimaru gains preferred enemy A. Blood of the Dragon. A. Hazukimaru has the blood of a dragon, and this grants him immense magical power. Hazukimaru rarely uses this power actively, but this blood gives him the ability to shift partially or completely into a dragon. The powers inherent in this blood give Hazukimaru an advantage against any noble phantasm that is wielded by someone who did not slay a dragon or dragons as part of their legend, ranking the noble phantasm down by 1. Hazukimaru cannot be harmed by anything less than a B-rank noble phantasm, unless someone who killed a dragon or dragons as part of their legend is the one wielding the weapon, then any weapon can harm him. Hazukimaru also loses 1 rank in strength, agility, and endurance against such foes, though he gains veteran of the war with Knights A. Blood of the Demon. A. Hazukimaru is a child of demonic heritage and is himself a demon of battle. Against foes wielding holy weapons, Hazukimaru gains veteran of the Spirit War A, and the enemy has their weapon gain 1 rank in power when wielded against Hazukimaru, though against a child of light, who is a holy presence themselves. Hazukimaru gains 1 rank in all stats, while their stats all go down by 1 rank. Veteran of the Spirit War. A. As a demon, Hazukimaru is fiercely opposed to all things holy and the children of the heavens. Demons have long opposed the heavens, so against any holy warrior, Hazukimaru lowers all their stats by 2 ranks, due to the experience demons have gained in this war. Hazukimaru may also devour souls to temporarily become a more powerful demon, and use this temporary power to summon and command lesser demons. Veteran of the war with Knights. A. Dragons of legend have long fought for their lives against Knights. This has resulted in much battle experience being passed on to dragons, allowing them to better defend themselves against dragons. Against any of the 3 knight classes, someone who had being a knight as part of their legend, or someone who has slaying dragons as part of their legend, Hazukimaru lowers all their stats by 2 ranks due to this experience fighting them, passed through ancestral memory. Preferred enemy. A. As a child of war, Hazukimaru is most effective against those who have avoided battle as much as possible, preferring peaceful resolution, or those who did not have the chance to fight much during their lifetime. His strength, endurance, and agility are all raised by 2 ranks against such foes, unless they themselves challenge him to battle. Hazukimaru brings to battle an aura of bloodlust that if not resisted, will force Mad Enhancement C upon the enemy, giving him a berserk foe thirsting for battle, which will be a death sentence against this cunning warrior, though he will greatly enjoy the fight. Bariro Kujaku. The Brilliant Vines that bring death. This Zanpakuto has 2 forms, one of them pure melee, and the other pure Keto type. Due to this weapon spirit can have his mood change rapidly, subject to such things as weather, someone wearing clothes that doesn't like, or Yumichika. His 2 general moods are cheerful and murderous, and it is sometimes hard to tell which. Ranks. C. Anti-unit. B. Anti-unit. X. Anti-army world. Manifested stats. Strength B, Agility B, Luck C, Endurance B, Mana X. Other abilities are Mana Leech X and Keto B. Keto. B. Allows use of keto spells at level 88 or lower. Spells below 70 have the mana cost cut in half. Mana Leech. X. Rurirokujaku's personal ability. Allows him to steal mana from everything and anything animate and make it into his owner Saber's mana. At full power, it may drain a world and turn all that mana into attacking power. It is not recommended to face Rurirokujaku for servants. Any attacks made may also be drained of mana to feed Rurirokujaku. Other noble phantasms will be revealed later. Wait and let us catch up, Saber Lancer calls. Ilya apparently had 4 other servants hanging back, waiting to attack as a surprise, and they had to be fetched before Ilya could leave with me, so I'm a bit ahead of them. They went to the bother of revealing their names to me, seeing as we have a truce for the moment, which may carry into an actual partnership, depending on how things go. The Lancer who originally challenged me is Hector, with the other 4 Lancers in Ilya's service being Leonidas, Agamemnon, Aeneas and Achilles. Ilya's berserker is of course Hercules, and her 2 archers are Paris and Odysseus, which means this little group of Greek heroes serving Ilya-chan is bound to have some disagreements among themselves. Only Leonidas and Hercules stay out of the argument that begins as we head towards the church, Hercules because he's insane and Leonidas because he was born later on. If a fight did break out among this group however, I'm sure it would be fairly evenly matched, though Paris would probably lose to Odysseus. Achilles could beat Hector again, and Agamemnon would probably be evenly matched with Aeneas until Achilles came to his aid, so the Greeks would win in the end, but I'm guessing it would be close. We arrive at the church with an hour to spare and are greeted at the door by a red-haired woman in a business suit, Lancer at her side. "And who might you be?" she asks suspiciously, Lancer raising his spear at her tone of voice, then I move past Berserker, who was concealing me, and draw Hazukimaru. "Denpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, servant Saber, in service to Emiya Shiru," I growl out. She suddenly looks far happier, and I continue. "His sister, Ilyasviel von Einsborn, and her servants, have been invited to attend the wedding today," I state flatly. "So, I'll have a guest who's of a notable family in the association at the wedding of myself, Shiru, and Karen," then she says happily. I freeze in the process of stepping forward, shocked. Kirei was nice enough to settle the details for us. Shiru will need someone who's strongly connected to the association to help him deal with the politics that will come when he begins to assert his place there. After all, she continues. "I'm Bazit Frogamakremets, a pleasure to meet you, Kenpachi-san." "His place? Has something happened in the past couple of hours I've been gone?" I ask cautiously, releasing Hazukimaru's Shikai warily. "Yes. Shiru doesn't use projection to make his copied weapons, not even the copied noble phantasms. He doesn't even use the variant on projection his future selves use," Bazit tells me. "He uses the denial of nothingness," she continues, and my jaw drops behind my helm. The ability to make something real from nothing. Shiru isn't temporarily copying noble phantasms. He's creating their twin instead. Only when he dismisses them are they undone. This is going to be interesting, I think, through the shock of this revelation. And the association is going to go ballistic. A rogue sorcerer, Root help us all. Apparently, when he first figured out alteration, he tried to alter one of the nerves he made into a temporary circuit into a permanent circuit. He lost control then, and turned his entire nervous system into magic circuits, and it took the noble phantasm implanted in his body 3 months to regenerate the nerves he lost. From what he knows, when he flooded it with prana, it was forcibly converted to actually work properly for him, as well as that blue saber of his, the King of Knights, Bazit tells me. We only noticed it a couple hours ago, and Kirei worked quickly to provide a solution to the problem the association will see a rogue sorcerer as being. Understood, I respond as another servant appears next to Bazit in a blur of speed. Another Lancer, I notice, carrying a massive bronze shield on one arm. I see Hector summon his spear and take a wild guess at who this is. Ajax, I presume. "Correct. Who's asking?" he responds, turning to me. He sees Hector a second later and leaps at him, spear down in shield position to protect his torso and head. "Bankai. Ryuman Hazukimaru," I say, slamming the spear that is Hazukimaru's Shikai into the ground, causing a ripple to spread through the concrete as a tornado of power erupts around me, making everyone leap back. A moment later, the tornado clears, revealing me carrying the 3 massive weapons of Hazukimaru's Bankai. Compensating for something, Hector asks from behind me. "You're under my protection, so I'll keep you safe from Ajax." "But I will get revenge for that comment, Hector," I growl back, raising the Guandao and pointing it towards him. He gulps and takes a step back. "This I have to see," Ajax says. "Please, continue, whoever the hell you are," he comments, then Bazit punches him in the arm and tells him who I am. "Very well," I say, gathering my composure, silently apologizing to males everywhere. I see that everyone has come out of the church or is watching at the windows, and I raise a green glowing hand towards Hector after sealing and sheathing Hazukimaru. I will never forgive myself for doing this, but it must be done. I am sorry, Hector, I tell him. Sorry about what, he asks warily, spear ready, pointed towards me. Song of 1,000 faces, light of new eyes, be born, be destroyed, truth and order, challenging heaven, demonic fortress, rest, wake, disrupt all existence. Be born anew. Bakuto number 103, Kinenki I say, and the green light extends from my hand, enveloping Hector. A scream is heard from within, swiftly rising in pitch, then it is cut off as the cocoon thickens. I put a lot of power into this to make sure Hector didn't suffer for long, and I silently close my eyes in mourning for what I have done. A moment later, the cocoon vanishes, and a tall, black-haired, blue-eyed, bronze-skinned woman, hair extending to her mid-back, stands in Hector's place. She carries his spear and shield, and her features are very much like his were. I draw Nejibana and silently release the blade, then spin the trident that forms, leaving a sphere of water that will serve as a mirror behind. What did you do to me, she demands of me, spear leveled, ready to kill me. I silently point at the mirror, and she looks at it. She freezes when she catches sight of her new looks, then very slowly looks down at her chest. That leaves no doubt she is female, but she checks again, raising one hand. Her reflection raises a hand as well, then she screams and faints. Denpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, did I just see what I think I did, I hear Odysseus ask me. Another archer levels a bow at us from the door, or more specifically at Achilles. Achilles, we have a fight to resume, she laughs, clearly joyful at fighting again. If you don't remember me, I am Penthesilea, and this time, I will win, she proclaims, bow at the ready. If you mean did I turn Hector into a woman, then yes I did, I tell him quietly, ashamed of myself for doing such a thing. I feel dirty now, and I have to avoid Unohana. I should never have asked her to help me with Kido, as she taught me that one as well. I am grabbed in a hug by Odysseus, Achilles, Ajax, and Agamemnon. A moment later, the four warriors laughing at Hector's fate. You who have done this thing, you are as my brother, Ajax says, his laugh rumbling deeply. Very well, looks like I have two brothers in all but blood then, I say, remembering Sajin. Have you heard, I have a way for pretty much any servant who feels like it to stick around after the Grail War ends, I say offhandedly, and Achilles suddenly tries to crush my ribs. How, he asks me, releasing me. You know my name. You know what I am, and I'll explain how I got stuck in the servant system in a bit, I tell him. But when I return to the Seireitei, I am more than capable of taking guests with me, I tell him. I have more than enough power to stabilize the path to the Seireitei for however many want to go and sustain them until the servant system hands them over to the Seireitei. Understood. My wish is to live again, so your master and Ilya are now allies. Period, the end, no arguments accepted, Achilles says cheerfully. I nod slowly, then turn to head inside, sealing and sheathing Nejibana as I draw a Ryokujaku. He will quiet any troublemaker quite well, I think. 2 hours later, Kirei has gotten the vows from all but Shiru, and he looks nervous as Kirei turns to him and speaks. He looks at me, a command seal begins to glow faintly, and I draw Sanbansakura ever so slightly. Even here my helm is on, and I won't be removing it for any reason if I can, most likely. Shiru sighs, resigning himself to his fate, and gives his oath, binding himself, and may he have good fortune. At least he has connections to the church and association now, so when I leave, I won't be leaving him high and dry. And now for the feast, Kirei says as Emiya, Hana, and Lily come out of the church's kitchen, beginning to put platters of food on the tables that were set out not too long ago. She returns to me, and a command seal glows, but this seal, unlike the others, is black, and the glow somehow makes it darker rather than producing light. Servant Saber, known as Kenpachi Yamamoto Ichigo. By the power of this command seal, I, Emiya Shiru, command you to remove your armor for the duration of this feast, he orders, and I don't even bother resisting. What's the point? I reach up and remove my helm, hanging it at my side, then use my new ability from the servant system to dismiss my armor and robes, leaving me in my civilian clothes, and on Mitsukido uniform and my Heiori, swords still in their harness. I suddenly see Skathath and Alter look at me in interest and curse silently, with great feeling. I vanish, reappearing near the tables as I begin to fill plates with food. I'm hungry, and the food smells good, so I might as well begin to fill my complaining stomach. Hungry? Ichigo-kun, Skathath asks, striding over, her weapons banished. Yes. The more powerful the Shinigami, the more food we need. I'll be eating a lot, so grab the food while you can, I say. Berserker is striding over, Ilya on his shoulder, laughing. No madmen at this feast. Go find your sanity, then come back, I order. I hear a laugh from across the room, a servant I don't recognize, with long purple hair and clothes that are far too revealing, finding amusement in my comment. Hercules growls, and my hand drops to Ryokujaku. Someone else was invited apparently, and I didn't even know until this exact moment, so I am slightly irritated by this unexpected by me guest. Though that might explain why I heard 4 voices responding to Kirei before Shiru rather than 1, come to think of it. I was performing Jinzan unsuccessfully, so was too distracted to really care about how many people were responding. I don't want Berserker to be sane though, Ilya says. It hurt when I summoned him, she continues, wary. He might want revenge for keeping him insane. I draw Riro Kujaku, face like stone. If he does, I will stop him, Ilya-chan, I say quietly. She nods and closes her eyes, silently releasing Berserker's mad enhancement. Why did she say it hurt when she summoned you, Hercules, I ask, once I see reason return to his eyes. She was forced to summon me 2 months before the Grail began to support my existence, Hercules snarls. I react on instinct, Raijin Jaka in hand and released into Bankai heartbeat after he finishes. I contain the heat so it doesn't scorch the food and slowly calm down over the next few minutes. The pain from that to do that to a child, I snarl, rational thought all but gone. Who and where, I demand. Their grandfather. Germany, Hercules, responds. Why? So I can see to it that the healthy, well-reasoned, exquisitely planned application of violence is carried out, I growl through a red haze, my mask forming on my face without me consciously willing it. Motion seconded, Hector snarls, her voice filled with fury and righteous feminine rage. You may add my vote to that proposal. Shortly after I was summoned, I was forced to defend her from the beasts of a forest, Hercules says, and I enter Seireitei a second later, Zangetsu suddenly in my hands instead of Raijin Jaka, having entered Bankai without even knowing it. Shadows fill the room, myself and Zangetsu in perfect agreement on this matter. Someone lend me a holy weapon. I'm going to loan it to Ilya-chan's grandfather so I can bring Zangetsu's full might as an anti-universe weapon to bear, I demand. I have my view suddenly filled several holy weapons, Joan, Saber, Nero, Emiya and Hana all offering me holy weapons. I take Hana's and nod in thanks. Saber. After the feast, Shiru says, his own voice filled with rage. Then we can kill Ilya's grandfather and make it a brother-sister bonding experience, he tells me calmly. I nod slowly, seeing the wisdom of this. I sheath Zangetsu, leave Seireitei and silently return Hana's weapon to her for the moment as I grab my own plates of food, then hand one to Hana. Thanks for the blade. I'll be needing it again once the feast is done. Now, let's have the humans seated in one area, the servants in another, and each group can bond that way. Kirei, get over here. You're a Shinigami, so you'll be joining me and any others who feel like going to the Seireitei. I'll be talking with them about the home you'll be settling in soon, so you might as well hear also, I command, and he nods as he walks over. Very well. I am certain this will be most interesting, and I do have many questions remaining, Kirei says, striding towards the coalescing group of servants. Behind him, the sun is setting, and I am glad I woke up late in the day, as I otherwise would have had a far longer and more tiring day probably. The servants sit a healthy distance from the tables and well away from the humans, so we don't need to start worrying about trouble with master's servant joining them before another servant can intercept if an argument breaks out among the humans. So, how do we get this feast started properly, Achilles asks after a couple moments of silence. I respond by beginning to talk about the Seireitei as Alter starts pouring sake for us all to drink, blade set aside for now. Once I finish my first tale, Odysseus picks up with a tale of his travels and we continue from there, trading tales of battle, life, and whatever else we feel like talking about at the moment for the next several hours. Twice, someone barges into the church and Kirei leaves for a bit to speak with them, and both times returns shortly, bringing a few more servants to join us, as their master is sent to join the rest of the humans. I start laughing when I see one of the servants who arrives with the second master, who is a tall black-haired male, who obviously knows how to use force of personality if need be to get things done. The servant is tall, bulky, heavily muscled, and red-haired. Alexander the Great, I take it, I ask him a few moments later, and he nods, then laughs, his amusement clear in his resounding roars of mirth. So, someone knows me, the king of conquerors, he responds to me a minute or two later. How? But more importantly, would you like to join my army? You would be treated as an honored ally rather than a servant, just as I treat all my men as my friends rather than my soldiers, he says. I look at him and nod, seeing the king of conquerors and liking what I see. I point at Alexandra and speak. Alexander the Great, meet Alexandra the Great, queen of conquerors. That's how I knew who you were. However, I don't feel I can join your army. How would you like to join mine instead, I offer, and his laughter shakes the room. I think we'll get along very well, warrior. Who are you, he asks once he stops laughing, joy on his face. Denpachi Yamamoto Ichigo, king of conquerors by declaration of Alexandra the Great, I say, and he nods slowly, then clasps my outstretched hand firmly. I nod in respect to him, he nods back, and we decide we are as brothers. I can certainly get along with this man, and he can get along with me. I pour him a glass of wine from Gilgamesh the queen's treasury, which she opened for this party, and offer it to him as I pour one for myself. He nods, takes it, and we drink as one, sealing our friendship. Note. There will be 16 servants of each class. Possibly more, depending on my mood. Should I include Avenger and Saber, or should I avoid doing so? Also, I felt I didn't expand enough on some Zanpakuto I mentioned in chapter 52. The only Gilgamesh around now is the Queen of Heroes. If I refer to Joan, I'm referring to the Queen of Knights, Arturia Pendragon. I'm using Joan as her alias right now, in case any of you forgot. New noble phantasms are being introduced for this chapter. Shinso. The Archer's Blade. Shinso is nearly unique among Zanpakuto in that she has 2 Shikai states, and which one she is released into determines her Bankai. When released, she becomes either a spear or an Yurumi, though the Yurumi is her true release. Her spear shape was gained against her will when another wielder decided he preferred a long-ranged weapon to an Yurumi. Saber will avoid if at all possible forcing Shinso into her spear Shikai and has earned her loyalty for that. Ranks. C. Anti-unit. B. Anti-unit army. A++. Anti-unit army. Manifested stats or strength B+, agility A++, luck E, mana C, endurance B. Other skills are clairvoyance A, steel of the soul A, true strike A. Steel of the soul. A. Shinso was born from the soul of her wielder, and her steel may channel the power of her wielder's soul. At this rank, Kido of level 250 or lower may be cast from the blade of Shinso, rather than her own wielder's hands, allowing Saber to make short-range Kido attacks from the tip of the blade when Saber is hundreds of meters or more away. Saber may extend the blade of Shinso further than it could normally be extended by focusing his mana into the blade, artificially lengthening it, allowing Shinso's Shikai to stretch for multiple kilometers, given Saber's power. True strike. A. Shinso is aware and will guide her blade towards her target, seeking to kill them. At this rank, Shinso will almost consistently strike her target, and without the enemy having a minimum of a B+ rank in agility, Shinso has an excellent chance of striking a vital area. Shinso can guide her blade even around corners or around walls if need be, and dodging this blade is impossible without a minimum of an A rank in agility. Blocking is the only certain way to keep this blade from striking, and Shinso will pierce through any defense below B rank in power due to the force of Saber's Ryatsu and the pure speed of the strike. Benihim. Crimson Princess of the battlefield. Benihim is highly dangerous to everything around her, being essentially a weaker Kido-type equivalent of Kai no Ti no Megami. Well wielded and with enough power, Benihim's Bankai is nearly unstoppable against anything short of Kai no Ti no Megami, Zangetsu, Raijin Jaka, Hyorinmaru, or Nijibana. This blade thirsts for blood, and only her wielder is safe from this vicious blade. Ranks. C. Anti-unit. B+, Anti-unit. A+++, Anti-army fortress, potential for X, anti-world. Manifested stats or strength B, agility B+, luck B, mana A+, endurance B. Other skills are Kido A, Warriorborn B, and Mad Enhancement C. Kido. A. At this rank, any Kido below rank 250 is available to Benihim, with any spell below 100 having the mana cost had. Warriorborn. B. Benihim was born for war and thirsts for battle. When Benihim is directly conflicting with the enemy, her true nature rises to the fore and she gains 1 rank in any stat the foe exceeds her in. Hyorinmaru. The winter dragon that consumes the universe. The most powerful of ice types Zanpakuto, this blade, when Bankai is used, has the ability to freeze everything, material or immaterial. It imposes the rule all things freeze before the power of this blade upon the universe. Connected to Saber's soul, if he uses it as a broken phantasm, it will regenerate over time. Hyorinmaru gives his wielder protection from Cold X. This blade may have the spirit within it manifested to fight in its master's name. When manifested, it will appear as a dragon made from ice, summoned as a divine beast. Ranks. C. Anti-unit. A. Anti-army. X. Anti-universe. Manifested stats are strength A, agility B, mana X, luck C, and endurance B. Other stats are divinity B, child of winter B, battle continuation C, mad enhancement C and stormcaller C. Child of winter. B. Hyorinmaru is born from deepest frost and the darkness of winter and carries this with him wherever he goes. Whenever facing an enemy who wields a weapon allied to fire or light, Hyorinmaru gains 1 rank to all stats, as well as preferred enemy A. The wielders of weapons connected to ice or darkness have the power of these weapons raised by 1 rank. Stormcaller. C. Hyorinmaru may call forth a winter storms and does this whenever unleashed in Bankai. At this rank, he may only summon blizzards, however, the power behind these blizzards is immense due to his nature, allowing Hyorinmaru to bury cities under kilometers of snow and ice, should he so wish. Preferred enemy. A. When Hyorinmaru faces a foe who is personally or bears a weapon aligned to fire and light, Hyorinmaru's full power is brought to bear, raising Stormcaller to A, though he remains confined to summoning blizzards. Any weapons born from or aligned with ice and darkness gain 1 rank in power, and Orochimaru may see the next 3 moves of his enemy, allowing him to plan ahead to defeat those moves. Weapons aligned to fire or light have their power cut in half, and Orochimaru's strength and agility are raised to X and A++ respectively. He also gains the ability to turn himself into a snowstorm rather than maintain a material form for the enemy to fight. Biting cold follows him into battle, and should the enemy not have a minimum endurance of B, the cold will consume them, freezing their blood. Those without endurance of at least B+ have all stats fall by 2 ranks. Raijin Jaka. The flames that turn creation to nothing. The most powerful of fire types Zanpakuto, this blade, when Bankai is used, may unleash flames that burn all things, tangible or not. The rule this blade imposes upon the universe is all things burn to ash. If used as a broken phantasm, it will regenerate over time. Like all Zanpakuto, this blade spirit can be manifested to aid its master. The manifested spirit will appear as a dragon made from fire, summoned as a divine beast. Ranks. C. Anti-unit, fully sealed. A+, anti-army, Shikai. X. Anti-universe, Bankai. Manifested stats are Strength B, Agility B+, Mana X, Luck C+, Endurance B+. Other stats are Divinity A, Child of Fire B, and Child of the Sun B. Child of Fire. B. Raijin Jaka is born from flames, a fierce dragon who knows no equal in the strength of his fires. Whenever facing a foe with a weapon aligned to the forest or to ice, he gains Preferred Enemy A, and the wielders of all weapons allied to fire have their power rise by 1 rank. Child of the Sun. B. Raijin Jaka, besides being born from flames, is specifically born from the flames of the sun. He is a creature of light and glory, and when facing a foe allied to darkness or wielding a weapon allied to darkness, including cursed and demonic weapons, he gains Preferred Enemy A, and the wielders of all weapons allied to light or glory, such as Excalibur. Forged from the Prayer Glory, have those weapons gain 1 rank in power. Preferred Enemy. A. Whenever Raijin Jaka is facing a foe wielding one of the weapons allied to the elements he is strong against, he may bring forth his full might, being able to summon the flames that reduce the universe to ashes, even when in Shikai. Raijin Jaka is shrouded in flames burning as hot as the sun, and any foe without endurance C+, will be unable to withstand the heat if they are within 300 meters of Raijin Jaka, dying quickly from the heat of the flames. Without a minimum of endurance B+, all the stats of the foe will fall by 3 ranks, as power is consumed to allow them to fight in the heat. Raijin Jaka's strength and agility are raised to X, and he may instead of fighting personally create beasts from his flames that he may control and send against the foe. Hinoti no Megami. The goddess of slaughter unending. A blade with extreme powers which require its wielder to bathe the blade in blood to unlock them. She is a creature of war and slaughter, and always seeks battle. The further the blade is bathed in blood, the more of her powers may be unleashed. If used as a broken phantasm, this blade will regenerate, and its spirit can be manifested. Ranks. C. Anti-unit, fully sealed. B+, anti-unit support, Shikai. X. Anti-world army fortress unit support, Bankai. Manifested stats are Strength A+, Agility A+, Luck C, Endurance A, Mana B. Other skills are Magic Resistance A, Divinity A, Eye of the Mind, True B, Eternal Arms Mastery A+, Child of War A, She Who Presides Over War B, and Mad Enhancement B. Child of War A. Hinoti no Megami is the goddess of war and death, and she rejoices in battle. Honorable conflict is her way, and should she face a worthy foe, she will meet them with all her might. When facing multiple foes, or one foe with 2 stats equal to hers, Hinoti no Megami gains Preferred Enemy A+, and the wielders of all weapons allied to war, as well as all cursed or demonic weapons, gain 1 rank in all their stats, and have the power of their weapons rise by 2 ranks. Preferred Enemy A+. Whenever facing a worthy foe or multiple foes, all of Hinoti no Megami's stats rise by 2 ranks, and she gains the ability to act as an anti-universe weapon at full power when her blade is fully bathed in blood. She also becomes invulnerable to any weapon below B rank, regardless of the power behind the weapon. All enemies who are unworthy have the power of their weapons cut in half, and their stats fall by 1 rank. She Who Presides Over War. B. Whenever observing a battle between 2 worthy foes, Hinoti no Megami expresses her divinity and becomes an existence similar to a divine spirit of war, having all her stats raised by 3 ranks, and the stats of those she is observing are raised by 1 rank. Should she decide to join the battle, however, the battlefield instantly becomes ground blessed by the gods of war, and all on the battlefield who have fought in at least 1 war during their lifetime have all stats raised by 1 rank, and their noble phantasms also have their power raised by 2 ranks. Hineko. The cat born from a volcano. In Shikai, this weapon's blade becomes an ash cloud which acts much like Zanpakuto's petals. In Bankai however, this blade becomes extremely powerful, controlling all fire in existence, though this ability is mainly used to control lava and ash. At full power, this blade is able to turn an entire world into a giant volcano. Hineko gives her wielder protection from Fire X. The blade will regenerate if used as a broken phantasm. Ranks: C. Anti-unit, fully sealed. B. Anti-unit, Shikai. X. Anti-world, Bankai. Manifested stats are Strength B, Agility B+, Endurance B, Luck C, Mana A+, Magic Resistance C, Child of the Volcano B, and Knight of Honor C, as Hineko may use her fires to reshape an item into a weapon, though the weapon will only be an E-rank noble phantasm. Child of the Volcano. B. Hineko was born in the fires of a volcanic eruption and is the embodiment of ash and lava. Whenever fighting in a volcanic area, Hineko gains 1 rank to all stats. Whenever facing a foe allied to or wielding a weapon allied to water or wind, Hineko gains Preferred Enemy A, and the wielders of all weapons allied to fire, earth, or volcanoes have their weapons gain 1 rank in power. Preferred Enemy A. Whenever facing a foe aligned to or wielding a weapon aligned to wither, water or wind, Hineko has all stats rise by 1 rank, and the stats of Hineko's foes are cut in half, with their weapons also having their power halved. Hineko also brings forth lava and ash from the earth, turning the area within 100 meters of her into a volcanic wasteland, clouding the skies for 10 kilometers around with ash. Earthquakes are summoned by her presence, shaking the land and having the potential to bring forth a tsunami if Hineko is fighting above the water. Other noble phantasms will be revealed later. How did you conceal yourselves earlier? When I visited the Ainsburn mansion, Lancer, I asked Achilles, wondering how my careful search of the area with a Ryatsu pulse before I entered the building failed to find him. The mansion is made to conceal servants. So long as they're astralized and not in your line of sight, a servant can't be detected while within the building. The Ainsburn used their knowledge of the Grail system to create something that could hinder the detection abilities of servants. Achilles responds, and I mentally curse my bad judgment in entering without a visual scan first. I see. Interesting is all I say out loud as I turn to Alexander the Great. And why did your master come here? I ask him, very curious about this. To register with the overseer of the war, Alexander replies, and I groan inwardly as I realize I forgot such an obvious reason. But the feast is definitely not a bad reason for me to stick around, Alexander continues, returning to his food. I nod and raise my glass of wine in salute, then drink. The Queen of Heroes was kind enough to provide wine from her treasury to those servants who are attending the feast, so I am rather pleased with the drink that I have access to. Maybe bringing her back to the Seireitei will be a good thing for me after all, I silently muse to myself. At least I will never lack for good wine, though other irritations may come into play, and that particular luxury will fail to compensate for them. So, if I joined your army, what would the pay be like? Alexander questions, and now we've reached a subject that interests me. Assuming you became Shinigami, it's very likely that you would immediately be placed as seated officers in the 8th. I currently have a lot of applicants being brought in, but not enough seated officers to lead the combat teams of my division. You would likely acquire your Shikai quickly, hopefully learn Kido before too long, and then, with luck, have Bankai within the year. You would likely retain your noble phantasms, so you could acquire Bankai by combat more easily and harmonize with your Zanpakuto later, as right now we have a desperate need for any warrior with Bankai, and I suppose I can overlook the method of acquisition, I reply. Pay is good for a seated officer, being sufficient to not only live on, but also maintain some luxury, especially when in a combat division. Our division barracks are extremely comfortable if you choose to live there, as most do. You would probably get placed around my 10th seat position, and promotions would come quickly, provided you weren't automatically promoted to 3rd seat and placed in my bodyguard, and that position comes with high enough pay to be living just below the level of a member of a noble family, I continue. Good, good. I like the sound of that, Alexander replies, nodding slowly in satisfaction. Are there any supplements to our pay? He asks hopefully, and I nod immediately. Yes, hollows come with their own bounty, as do plus souls. The more that are slain and or purified, the higher your pay. If you made a habit of hunting judges, you'd be living like the average noble within a year, I tell him, and there are sudden looks of interest and grins all around as this knowledge is made public. I see. Well, I have no objection to earning an honest day's living, and this is a better living than I might otherwise get in this world, providing I didn't conquer it with my army, Alexander replies cheerfully, downing a glass of wine. I begin to laugh as I imagine Alexander in Shinigami robes. He'll have his own division given time most likely, and probably be granted a position as a noble before long through sheer force of personality. We'll get along nicely, I think, or at the very least we'll be a good team in combat. Excellent, I reply, then turn my attention back to my own food. I am a bit hungry right now. Once the feast is done, the various servants rejoin their masters, taking up a guard around them. Each member of this small army of servants will be staying here along with their human masters tonight, and tomorrow it will be decided whether or not we ally or not as a group. Tonight, however, anyone who attacks this church will regret being born about 5 seconds later, once our noble phantasms are brought into play. I already have Shinso in hand and in Shikai, ready to strike down any fool that comes within range of me. I have already begun, but not finished, the chance for half a dozen Kido, having only to name them to finish the spell and unleash destruction. As I patrol, I feel a familiar dark presence rising within my inner world, and I devote a part of my attention to the attempt my hollow makes to communicate. A moment later, I appear in my inner world, standing on one of the skyscrapers in Zangetsu's realm. "Hello," Ichigo the hollow says. I nod cordially to him in return, wondering how he has escaped the binding I placed him under after his defeat. I casually draw my blade, and he raises a hand to stop me attacking. I'm not interested in fighting right now. Instead, I have a deal to propose. I can be of use to you. Without me, you'll never be as strong as you can be if you accept my aid, he says, calmly stalking towards me. He's in a white version of my Shinigami robes, carrying Zangetsu's Shikai, though it has the colors reversed. I nod, understanding that a portion of my own soul, repulsive as it may be to a Shinigami, is still a portion of my soul. I cannot reach my full power without using my hollow as well as my Zanpakuto. I raise my hand to meet his, and a ripple spreads across him as our Reiatsu meets. A moment later, he is clad in a blue and white version of my red and black armor, carrying reversed color versions of my blades. We nod to each other calmly, him having absorbed some of my new nature, becoming more in line with the noble I am, rather than the rash boy I was when he was born. I will manifest you shortly. Our time in this world is almost done. Shiru is set to have a decent life now, so I can turn to the offensive. Your job will be to act as a scout. Exterminate the foe if you can. Weaken them and retreat if you can't. I will share your sight if possible and gather information through that. Attempt to provoke usage of noble phantasms, I order. The hollow nods, his helm vanishing. He is grinning widely, clearly anticipating the fight soon to come. Fair enough, King. I let you use Segunda Atapa for now, you'll have to work with me to earn the rest, he says, then vanishes as a massive dragon made of ice swoops into the city, landing on one of the buildings. Ichigo, it is time you began training for the higher releases. You can only achieve them when you are in Bankai by understanding the source of your Zanpakuto's power, then it is a matter of delving further into that power. All Zanpakuto with forced Bankai have a final technique, a stage where all their power is unleashed to destroy a single foe. Zangetsu has the final Jutsuga Tenshu, for example. That technique is nothing next to the power brought forth by the third release. It is not because the third release is stronger, it is in fact slightly weaker, it is because this is sustained power. Instead of merging with your Zanpakuto, as you would to unleash your final technique, you instead merge your Reiatsu with theirs. Normally, Shinigami and Zanpakuto can be told apart. Not so with the third release, your Reiatsu becomes the Reiatsu of your blade, and their Reiatsu becomes yours. There is an instinctive barrier between you and fully acknowledging that your Zanpakuto is born of your soul. It is your power formed anew, become a partner to lend you strength rather than your own strength. Now you take it to a level where your personalities merge rather than one personality being dominant and the other becoming strength for you to use. You are not one Ichigo, you are many. We are legion, so let our enemies fear, for we are many. Accept this, become two that are at the same time one. Two personalities, each accepting that they are a facet of the other, becoming united for a single purpose. This is what the third release requires. Do you understand this, Ichigo Orochimaru asks. I nod slowly, beginning to comprehend what my Zanpakuto is saying. I understand. The power is not just mine in the third release. It is ours. We will be legion, and we will be many, I respond several minutes later. Orochimaru nods, then vanishes as well. I leave my inner world, finding that I continued my patrol without needing to be fully mentally present. Second division tricks for multitasking work again. As I stride through the temple, I wonder why Shiru got Bazit as well as Sakura, Rin, and Karen. All but Bazit have obvious reasons, but maybe Bazit is seeking to bring her name to a higher level in the association. Having a sorcerer be her spouse will bring her prestige, and Shiru has other advantages as well. If taught mystic code crafting, with his understanding of every weapon he sees, he may be able to craft noble phantasms anew, or at least mystic codes, so like it makes no difference. Imbuing the qualities into the weapons as they are forged should allow him to do something along those lines, and having a supply of higher ranked mystic codes will be useful to a freelancer or enforcer. Also, any materials Shiru might need to make them, he can create with the denial of nothingness. It's almost certain that he could recreate anything short of Excalibur, and his possession of E and his reality marble would probably make him one of the most useful people around when it comes to watching Bazzet's back in a fight, short of a servant. Little concern of mine in the end, but I do like to look after comrades if possible, and as my summoner, I suppose Shiru counts as a comrade. I halt my thoughts for the moment and continue my patrol, determined to get this over with. The next morning. There was no disturbance in the night, Master, I report, having just finished the breakfast he made. Permission to go and practice to attain a higher state of release for my blades. I was given information I will need to be able to do so last night by High Orochimaru, and I wish to begin practice immediately. I continue. Shiru nods absent-mindedly, and I stride out of the temple, drawing Kai no Ti no Megami. The other servants rise from the tables where they were eating and follow me, obviously curious. Hound of Ulster, you'll be sparring with me to start, I command. He nods, grinning at the prospect of a rematch. Fine by me, Yamamoto, he laughs, spear appearing in his hand as he readies for combat. I doubt this church is a good place for a match though, so why don't we go somewhere else, he queries. I nod as I exit the church and astralize my armor and weapons so I can travel freely. My robes are replaced with a modified Onmitsukido uniform as I continue forwards to walk among the mundanes around here. The others do the same, taking on mundane appearances as they move into the flow of people. We are almost to the forest when we see a tent at the edge of the woods with a line of people standing outside, waiting to have their fortunes told by one of the women who are sitting outside it. Obviously a family from the resemblance, most of the women young while there is one older, probably 50 to 60 years old woman among them, guiding the others in their art. I sense a flicker of Ryatsu from one of them, and interest compels me to head towards the tent. The older woman looks up and grins as my group follows me, speaking as we settle into place. You may call your armor and weapons if you wish, I dislike seeing two images of someone, one within this world and one within the spirit world, she says. I sigh, then a second later, am back in robes and armor, blades in their sheaths, Kai no Ti no Megami at the ready. The others follow suit, the two versions of Shiru, as well as the two versions of Alexander, look at each other and nod. The light shines in far distant lands, where lies the endless ocean. Go forth and conquer, Alexander roars, and fire sweeps forth from him, creating a desert land, where the sound of an army on the march echoes through the dunes as his army appears. All of us other servants are standing at the edge of this realm, and I nod in respect. The world fell to our blades. Now fight alongside me again, Alexandra calls, and fire sweeps forth once more, creating another reality marble, this one excluding us from its ground as well, another mighty army appearing. This realm is a realm where mountains rise in the far distance, and plains covered with long grass fill the rest of this world. Joan smiles, then speaks as well. If you are calling your armies, I suppose I must, she says. Courage in our hearts, the wind at our backs, we ride to defeat all foes, and fire consumes the world once more, just for a moment, revealing an immense plain. Thousands of mounted armored knights appear in the far distance, the thunder of hooves shaking the ground as they come to join their queen. I remove one gauntlet and cut myself with Kai no Ti no Megami, covering the blade in blood. I might as well show my own army, though I have no world for them to fight in, I say. Bankai. Massacre, Shai Senjixiano Jiku ga Uwari Tikai wo Wadashita Senshi Megami, and my Bankai activates. I slam the blade into the ground, point first. I am the lord of endless armies, I proclaim, and summon an immense force to display my might. Barbarians clad in hides from times long past, and mounted warriors on horses come forth to my left, as fire sweeps forth from me as well, creating an immense battlefield, soaked in blood, covered in corpses, an immense temple waiting behind me. To my right, super soldiers in power armor and immense, heavily armored war machines appear, marching onwards to battle and death. Though I have no army, I may as well reveal my reality marble, Amias says. I am the bone of my sword. Steel is my body and fire is my blood. I have created over 1,000 blades. Unknown to death, nor known to life. Have withstood pain to create many weapons. Yet those hands will never hold anything. So as I pray, unlimited blade works, he says, and fire roars forth, creating a desolate red plain, gears turning in the background, an endless field of blades awaiting use. The desolate land stretches out for what seems like forever, blades littering the landscape like gravestones. Hana then begins to speak, a similar chant leaving her dot. This body is made of blades. Iron my bones, fire my blood, forge my heart. But stood pain to create weapons. Unaware of loss, nor aware of gain. Unknown to death, nor known to life. Created over 1,000 blades. Yet these hands will never hold anything. Eternally alone on the hell of swords. I forge the steel. Truly, this existence is the lost and the damned. Though there is no hope of salvation, though this existence has neither purpose nor meaning. Let it be granted this. That all it has been, all it shall be, all that it is a weapon of the eternal war. So is this existence praise. Unlimited blade work, she proclaims, and another endless plane of blades appears, giant gears turning in the sky. Here, the skies are dark, a black sun and red moon presiding over the field. Armor litters the ground, piled among the gravestones that are the endless blades. In the background, I see a pair of massive chains, each linked the size of Sajin, binding two immense beasts, one a sea serpent of incredible size, the other a wolf larger than any mountain. I thought you said you didn't have a reality marble, Alexandra asks a moment later. The mortals who came to have their fortunes told look shocked, backing away from us. It's a good thing I set up a barrier field of Keto to hide our power usage from anyone outside it and to wipe the memories of anyone inside who leaves and has neither Ryatsu or magic. This is the realm of Kai no Ti no Megami, I say, and Alexandra nods, now understanding. I contemplate this for a moment, then shift reality a bit. A sideways city replaces the blood-soaked field, the army still existing, ready to fight. Who owns that realm, Alexandra asks, stepping from her reality marble into mine, orienting sideways quickly, followed swiftly by the other servants. Zangetsu is ruler here, I reply, and exclamations of surprise are swift to come. The spirit of an anti-universe noble phantasm makes his home in the city, Gilgamesh asks. I nod, amused by her shock. But how could he make his realm here when he has such power? She wonders. I smile behind my helm, then reveal Zangetsu's true world. He has two realms, one that shows him as he was when I was a simple human with Shinigami blood, and one for when he matured into the Zanpakuto of a true Shinigami. Darkness consumes the city, a land of dark mountains appearing, shadows covering the landscape, only a moon as red as blood providing any light. The Black City is floating high in the air at the center of this world, immense chains forged from shadows anchoring it to the ground. Mighty hammers can be heard striking anvils in the city, and an army of shadowy warriors, clad in armor woven from darkness, wielding steel forged from night itself, march towards me. Zangetsu rules the shadows and their denizens, so naturally he has an army. With a simple exercise of power, I hold a Daido of shadow-forged steel, ready for battle. This is his true realm. Be wary. Zangetsu currently serves Muramasa, and his armies may be hostile, I say, readying my blade. The others draw their weapons as the armies of Joan, Alexander and Alexandra enter my realm, ready to go to war. And no Akari. The wrathful giant of the heavens. Tenno Akari is the younger of two brothers, both of giant blood, who decided to learn the ways of war. Tenno Akari was always more suited for magic though, while his brother did well in melee, so Tenno Akari developed his powers to use elemental control in melee combat, so as to emulate his brother. Honor is a prized thing to both brothers, and Tenno Akari will not refuse a challenge to single combat, no matter who challenges him. No circumstances will shift Tenno Akari from accepting a challenge to single combat once it has been issued, even if he is greatly disadvantaged against his opponent. Ranks. C. Anti-unit. B. Anti-army. A+, Anti-army fortress. Manifested stats are Strength A, Agility B, Luck C, Mana A, Endurance A. Other skills are Keto B, Mad Enhancement B, Child of Giants B, Bound by Honor A, Battle Continuation B. Keto B. Allows use of Keto spells at rank 88 or lower. Spells below rank 70 have the mana cost cut in half. Child of Giants B. Being of giant blood, Tenno Akari is one of the principal foes of Knights of Legend and loses 1 rank to his stats when facing someone who has being a knight as part of his legend or when facing someone who has slaying a giant as part of his legend. Also, those whose races are opposed to giants in legend, such as dwarves, also cause him to lose 1 rank to all stats when facing a member of one of those groups, and his enemies gain 1 rank to all stats. However, he gains high-speed regeneration B when facing such warriors, as the myths of giants and trolls were occasionally confused when speaking of such warriors, and regeneration is often an ability of trolls in many legends. When facing a foe not of such a group, he gains terror from the mountains A. High-speed regeneration B. Any wound save the loss of his head that is not cauterized will regenerate so long as Tenno Akari has any power left. Internal damage will regenerate at 1/4 the speed of external damage, however, though given Tenno Akari's durability, strength of rank A+ is required to deal internal damage. Terror from the mountains. A. In legend, giants are often said to dwell in the mountains and to come down from them to rampage. When facing one whose personal or racial legend does not include the opposition of giants, or one who is not a knight, Tenno Akari gains 2 ranks to all stats, and his opponents lose 1 rank to their stats, as well as being afflicted by the fear giants created. Preventing the use of any noble phantasm above rank B, due to the terror blocking the foe from remembering its existence. Bound by honor. A. Tenno Akari is bound by his code of honor, and is unable to refuse a direct challenge to single combat. Once he has accepted a challenge, he cannot flee the battle, nor can any interfere in the challenge to aid him. However, for every additional foe his opponent calls to aid him, 10 no Ikari gains 1 rank to all stats, or 2 ranks to a stat of his choice. He also gains high speed regeneration B when the code of honor is broken by such interference, and he may select that and the skill Kido as targets to rank up with the granted ability. Tenkin, the Raging Giant King. Tenkin is the elder brother of 10 no Ikari and specialized in melee combat, though he learned to manipulate fire to some extent in tribute to his brother. Tenkin disdains a shield when fighting, unlike his brother, and will usually be reluctant to use 2 blades. Tenkin prizes honor above all else and will go to great lengths to fulfill his vows. Ranks. C. Anti-Unti. B. Anti-Army. A+, Anti-Army Fortress. Manifested stats are Strength A+, Agility B, Luck C, Mana B, Endurance A+. Other skills are Bound by Honor A, Child of Giants B, Battle Continuation A, and Mad Enhancement B+. Servant stats for Ichigo's Hollow. Class. Saber. Alternate classes. Berserker, Caster, Lancer. True name. As yet unknown. Ichigo's Hollow abilities are contained in the blade he wrested from his Hollow's hands. Until Ichigo discovers the core essence of his Hollow's existence, what defines him, his name will remain unknown. Alignment. Chaotic Evil. As a Hollow, this servant exists to spread death and destruction. Aliases. Ichigo. Strength. B, B+ A. Agility. A, AA+. Endurance. B+, AA. Mana. A, A+, A++. Luck. E. Class skills. Magic resistance. B+. Cancels any magic below B+ rank or is less than a 10 count aria. Spells requiring over a 10-line trigger to allow the Magi to cast them will still take effect. Personal skills. Divinity. B. Associated with Saber, Ichigo gained Divinity, however, due to being a demonic existence, this was downgraded. Bravery. A+. The ability to resist mental interference, fatigue, and shock. Increases Ichigo's ability and damage in melee at this rank and renders any magical interference with his mind virtually useless. Ineffective when Mad Enhancement is activated. Battle Continuation. A+, Stubborn, will refuse to fall even when dealt fatal wounds and will be able to continue fighting. Will require extreme effort to kill and will allow high speed regeneration, more chance to work. When raised by Resurrection, will make it even more difficult to kill Ichigo. Instinct. A+. The ability to feel out the best course of action during battle. At this rank, Ichigo's instinct is very nearly precognition. When it is heightened by his mask and Resurrection, Ichigo's instinct allows him to all but see into the future and can determine with a high degree of accuracy what his opponent will do next. Any obstacles to Ichigo's senses when he is in Resurrection have their effectiveness reduced by 90%. At its highest level, every move is a step towards victory, or if outmatched, survival, so Saber may disengage and return to fight another day. High speed regeneration. A+, A++X. At A+, Ichigo can heal most wounds. Internal damage or his head being removed cannot be repaired, however. At A++, minor internal damage can be healed, and if a non-vital organ like the kidneys are destroyed, he may regenerate them given time. At X, Ichigo can heal any wound, internal or external, and if his severed head is reattached to his neck within half an hour, he will regenerate and live once more. If his heart is destroyed during battle, he will instinctively use Resurrection to boost his high-speed regeneration and heal the injury. Independent action. B. Allows Ichigo to manage for up to a week without a contract. Mad Enhancement. A. When activated, Ichigo is consumed by insanity, granting him an additional 1 rank up to his strength. Monster Strength. B. As Ichigo is technically a monstrous creature, he has the strength of 1. So long as he is willing to lose the intelligence to activate Resurrection. Segunda etapa, he may raise his strength by 2 ranks and agility by 1 rank. Mad Enhancement is also likely to activate. Eye of the Mind, True. B. D. Ability developed by virtue of sharing a mind with Saber, though this only carried through because it is largely instinct-based. Allows calm analysis of any combat situation and of the enemy's abilities, no matter the danger, and consideration of all possible actions to take. If there is even a 1% chance of victory, Ichigo's odds are greatly improved. Combined with Saber's instinct and high-speed regeneration, Saber may win battles even against foes stronger than he is. When ranked down, Ichigo needs much higher chances to victory to be able to manage a comeback. At rank E, at least a 50% chance of victory against his opponent is necessary to increase his odds, though Saber may be able to compensate for this with pure power. Eternal Arms Mastery. A. Ichigo's blades will remember the skill Saber has used them with and impart that skill even when Ichigo uses Mad Enhancement. Saber may not however release his blades while using Mad Enhancement, though his mask and Resurrection are available while he uses Mad Enhancement. Ichigo will continue to wield his weapons, insane due to Mad Enhancement or not, with the skill of a master swordsman. However, Ichigo has little of Saber's arsenal available to him, carrying only his mirror of Zangetsu. Noble Phantasms. Sunito. Sound-shattering stride of the unmasked. Allows Ichigo to move faster than the speed of sound. If he focuses, sonic booms can be created in his wake. Rank. D. Support. 0. The Light of Doom. An energy attack with multiple forms, which is extremely hard to dodge or block. However, if the opponent is strong enough, this will not necessarily do severe damage. Rank. AA. Anti-Fortress Unit. Resurrection. Primera Etapa. The first state of Resurrection, increasing all of Ichigo's stats. It also increases his instinct and high-speed regeneration, while downgrading his Eye of the Mind, True. Resurrection. A more complicated state of Resurrection, which requires Ichigo to refrain from using monster strength in order to call upon it. Grants further personal abilities and enhances what is already there for Ichigo's stats, instinct, and regeneration. Downgrades Eye of the Mind, True. Any light-based or holy attacks are a bad idea here, I inform my fellow servants. This is the realm of one opposed to those powers, and he gets stronger when facing them, I continue, reminding some, informing others. All of them nod in confirmation as they ready for combat. Saber curses, as Excalibur is both of those, so she's stuck with invisible air. Understood, Ajax replies. His spear and shield are at the ready, as he steps back into a formation with several of the warriors serving the King of Conquerors. A moment later, they lock shields and step forward, clearly meaning to be the front lines, while we servants find the enemy champions to challenge them. The shadowy army halts a few moments later, barely half a kilometer from our lines. Bows appear in the hands of myself, Hana, Gilgamesh, Odysseus, Paris, Joan, Emiya, and other servants with bows as one of their phantasms. Arrows appear on strings as we prepare to fire, then we get a surprise. The entire enemy army kneels and begins to chant my name. I reach forth with a flicker of my will into this realm born from my mind. The Grail recognized Kai no Ti no Megami's ability to summon an army and made assumptions when I was summoned, apparently. It had experienced such a phantasm before as a reality marble. She had an inner world, a realm born from my soul, which is what a reality marble is. The manifested inner world, which meant the Grail assumed my inner world could act as a reality marble, and labeled all the realms of my Zanpakuto as available for manifestation in said form. Now, these manifested realms are ruled by my will, and any who are part of them are my subjects. I reach into their thoughts, and find that Zangetsu's last order to them before his joining Muramasa was to obey me until he returned. I send another mental command, dismissing them to what they were doing before I called them by accident when I shifted realms. A second later, I dismiss my army, and the others follow suit. So why didn't they attack, Odysseus asks me. Zangetsu's last order to them. Until his return in full to me, I am master of that realm. Well, now that our little contest as to whose army is bigger is over, let's deal with the humans and get to what we were going to do, I explain, and C nods. A moment later, blades are drawn, arrows knocked, spears leveled, and axes raised. No need, memory keto setup. They'll forget, all save the spiritually sensitive, and I believe they know to keep their mouths shut anyways, I ask, and the older woman in the small group of fortune tellers nods. Blades are sheathed, bowstrings relaxed, spears slung for travel, and axes lowered once more as we begin to jog past the group, now done with a momentary distraction. The spiritually sensitive people here saw us, they requested for us to reveal our armor, and now my interest in them is done, as they proved strong enough to see spirits, and thus will likely be Shinigami after their deaths. However, until they die, my interest in them is done. They prove to only have a flicker of Ryatsu. Far off, I sense multiple servant battles commencing in the city, as my hollow draws servants out and sends them at each other. I register identities as he observes each battle and determines who is who, intervening and killing all servants involved in the fight once they are tired enough. Resurrection. Segunda Etapa is more than enough to allow him to do so, though he tends to draw attention when using it. Over the next 6 hours, we enter the forest and find a few places where we can spar in peace and swiftly commence matches between ourselves, matches changing every minute or two. A couple of times, I grab my opponent, Shunpo, to somewhere where my hollow is having trouble with one of his foes, such as the time my hollow misjudged and entered a fight before his opponents were exhausted. He was stuck facing Richard the Lion-Hearted, King of Crusaders, Saladin, King of the Desert, and a servant from the future, who was Magnus the Red, King of Sorcerers. Magnus the First had to face personally and still nearly lost. Even with Kai no Ti no Megami's Bankai, along with Zanka no Tachi, and a dual resurrection. Segunda etapa, with those Zanpakuto, he very nearly beat me, my victory coming only when I got lucky enough to pierce his spiritual matrix with an overcharged Quincy arrow, which I did, risking myself in order to win. Magnus was stronger than I was, and his psychic abilities were insanely powerful, but I used trickery to finally put him down. When I returned to the clearing where I was sparring, Alexander the Great and Saber alongside me, I was truly exhausted from that fight, it taking me nearly half an hour to recover enough to use Shikai, and an hour more passed before I could use Bankai Resurrection again. Richard the Lion-Hearted was very eager to prove himself a worthy warrior before King Arthur, and Saladin relished the chance to prove himself against Alexander. That left Magnus for me while my hollow left to recover, and never have I more regretted such a thing. I was hideously overmatched by the pure power Magnus wielded, having access to immense amounts of knowledge in his chosen art, enough raw psychic power for his ability to use psychic powers to count as an anti-galaxy noble phantasm, and millennia of experience. By anti-galaxy noble phantasm, I mean he could crush a galaxy into a sphere about the size of his eye in roughly half a second. Through the exertion of raw power alone. No control, just force of will, which would mean barely 1% of the power unleashed would be turned to what he wanted to do. And that was before he activated another noble phantasm, became a demon prince, and became able to wield even more power, with no worries of it harming him. Before, he could only use a small portion of his full might, which still qualified as an anti-galaxy noble phantasm, even reduced to roughly a tenth of its full capacity. I still, even with repeated healing spells from the allied masters, who the Lancers went to fetch not long ago, and my high-speed regeneration, feel like a giant mass of bruises and broken bones. I was able to match Magnus right up until he became a demon prince. Then I regretted ever being born, a few seconds after he ascended. His noble phantasm sons of Prospero summoned his legion, and Ahriman damn near killed me himself. All of the space marines of the legion were summoned as full heroic spirits, noble phantasms intact, and facing nearly 500,000 space marines, none of them rubric marines, was nearly the death of me on its own. Those who became rubric marines during the lifetime of the Legion instead became trained sorcerers of the Legion, which meant I was facing every 1,000 son who ever fought in the Legion, empowered by Magnus, and all of them were powerful sorcerers. Those who had become demon princes during their lives were summoned as such, and some of the sorcerers also committed their efforts to summoning demons. Greater demons of Tsinch were an utter pain, and I regretted Magnus's existence and the existence of the 1,000 Sun, a few minutes after Sons of Prospero was used. I hope none of his brothers were summoned to this war. Magnus was difficult enough, and he was summoned to the Lancer class, which was unsuited for him. If he had been summoned to Caster, I would have been doomed no matter what. As a Lancer, his casting abilities were reduced to maybe 1,000th of what they could be. His luck was reduced to E, and that caused half his spells to explode in his face. He crafted delicate spells requiring careful control to keep them stable and working by instinct, which allowed luck to come into play, causing him to slip and letting the spells go wrong as often as they went right. That saved me as well, as if his spells had gone right, I would have been doomed no matter what class he was part of. Finally I struggled to my feet a few moments after I finished remembering that fight and resume a sparring match I started before I left, fighting both Hounds of Ulster, the male and female version. Being beaten into the floor by Magnus deflated my ego very well. I was possibly getting arrogant, and now humility was hammered into me so thoroughly I don't think I'll forget this lesson anytime this century. More, I know that the Grail system couldn't fully contain Magnus's power, so he'd be stronger if I met him when he lived. I plan to throw myself into training once I return home to rest before continuing the fight against Muramasa, so I might match Magnus if we ever run into each other somewhere in the other worlds. At least Magnus said that he expected less from me and somewhat respected me for my ability to defeat him through luck and a lot of power thrown into the fight. Your mind isn't in the fight, the male version of the Hound complains. We've taken to calling him Qulan to distinguish him from the female version, who has taken on the temporary alias Av to set her apart. No, and I'm sorry about that, Qulan, I reply. Just remembering my being beaten into the ground by Magnus the Red, I clarify. He nods and winces slightly. I used a Aikido that turned the air into a viewing screen so everyone could watch the fights we were in if we left the clearing where our little band of servants was sparring, and everyone, servants and masters alike, got to see the fight with Magnus. Magnus created his own pocket dimension once he saw he was going to need to go all out, the small world spanning nearly 100 million square miles. There wasn't an inch of that world that hadn't been annihilated by the time we were done. When two powerful beings fight, the maps usually need to be redrawn afterwards, and I feel comfortable classifying both Magnus and myself as powerful beings. The world filled with massive forests, immense mountains, and deep oceans was leveled and turned into a flat desert about 15 minutes after the fight began. The fight itself lasted a full hour, and I hated every minute it dragged on, as that meant one more minute for me to be turned into something resembling a pancake. I had a physical advantage against Magnus, with Prana Burst having been copied from Arturia shortly before I entered the fight with Magnus. That was all that gave me the advantage physically, and Magnus still had the advantage in terms of experience and skill, doing his best to stay out of physical battles despite these advantages. Sadly, he succeeded for the most part. I can understand that. You were beaten into the ground so hard you caused earthquakes every time you were slammed into the dirt, Af says. I actually did hit the ground hard enough to cause category 8 earthquakes with every impact and wince at the reminder of my beating. Qulan nods in agreement as the two walk me over to the sidelines. I sit on there prompting me to and dismiss my armor. I am still a mass of bruises, torn muscles, and broken bones 4 hours after the fight, and both wince as they take note of my wounds. I am bleeding freely from several gashes in my skin which still haven't healed, as my regeneration is dealing with the most serious wounds first. Internal bleeding is still occurring, and I'm lucky Resurrection's heightened regeneration dealt with damaged organs when it was going. The internal bleeding will be dealt with soon. I just recently recovered hearing in one ear, and my eyes regenerated a bit before that. My fatal injuries were dealt with first, and soon, the more minor injuries will heal. I should be fine in about 10 hours, given how stubborn these wounds are being about healing. Stay here and heal, Qulan instructs as the masters head over, preparing another battery of healing spells from the look of things. I silently accept the healing spells, nodding my thanks to Rin, Sakura, and Ilya, whose healing spells are the most effective. Once they finish, the internal bleeding has ceased, and my collapsed right lung, which was pierced by 3 different ribs, has healed along with my ribsage, which had taken immense amounts of damage. I begin to breathe more steadily and enter Jinzen, intent. Most of the other servants outside our band have been eliminated now, the numbers of enemy servants reduced to only 6 servants who aren't allied with me, and those servants have their identities known. Theseus, king of Athens, slayer of the Minotaur, summoned to the class of Lancer. His main noble phantasm is a spear with a Minotaur's horn as a tip, which can pierce many types of defenses. He may also summon the labyrinth and move through it freely to allow ambush attacks. There are likely other noble phantasms in his arsenal, but they remained unrevealed. He will be difficult to deal with, but not impossible if I am careful about how I approach the fight. Atrera, first queen of the Amazons, daughter of Eurus, and summoned to the class of Rider. She has the chariot of Ares, a spear, a sword, and a bow. All are noble phantasms, and she grows stronger when facing a male opponent, but she is manageable for me, even in my current condition. Hannibal Barca, Carthage's finest general, also summoned to the class Rider. He can summon his army and has excellent strategic abilities. Difficult for most servants, but I shouldn't have too much trouble dealing with him. Aragon Shadowslayer, Dragon Rider, a servant from another dimension, summoned to the class of Caster. He has the ability to summon a divine beast level dragon, a sword that can cut through almost anything, a bow which will almost never miss, and magic that ignores the ability of magic resistance. Formidable, but I can probably manage him, even though he has a lot of experience and skill to put against my power, which vastly exceeds his. Bjorn the Fell-Handed, first great wolf of the Space Wolves, who lived in the same age as Magnus, and who managed to match him on Magnus's own terms once, even if only for a few minutes. Though, seeing as that fight was after Magnus's ascension to Demon Prince, it is a very impressive feat, and I do not look forward to that fight. Bjorn was summoned to the class of Berserker, and can apparently switch Mad Enhancement off at will. The last enemy servant currently in play has an impressive resume as well, being Nagash the Immortal, king of the Undead, summoned to the class Caster. In his universe, he was the first necromancer, the first Lich, and is the Lord of the Dead, able to summon immense armies of undead servants, along with every vampire ever to live in his universe, along with every warrior, living or dead, who ever served those vampires. The vampires themselves, in terms of stats, may match servants. Nagash also has the ability to summon the undead queen, Nephrim, who was once his captive, who he made undead as a weapon against the gods of his homeland. She has the capability to summon the powers of those gods and transform ordinary men into paladins of those gods, beings known as Ashavti, who can match or exceed the abilities of many servants. Bjorn and Nagash are firmly set against each other, so hopefully they will kill each other and leave a much easier fight for me. I do not want to face either of them after I faced Magnus and learned caution when dealing with beings like Nagash, Bjorn, and other beings that could possibly match a Primarch through some means. Hollow then manages to discover another servant summoned to the caster class, and I curse loudly as information floods my mind. Tristana Stormcaller, a master of weather-based magic. She draws her power from the elements themselves and can control the oceans, summon earthquakes and storms, create volcanoes, and unleash any type of natural disaster she feels like using at the moment. Near unlimited strength, her magic taking the form of a marble phantasm, and immense skill with her magic. I curse for the next several moments before I relay this information to the others, who join me in cursing this new information. I do not relish the idea of facing Tristana, even if I can beat her. Nejibana will be useless against her, as her abilities with control of water override all other abilities. Same goes for the rest of her abilities, with them taking priority over the abilities of others. Hineko will be useless, Hyorinmaru and Sode no Shirayuki will be useless, as she can control the powers of ice and winter, an ability discovered by her in later life, and honed to perfection. Cold and heat will not affect her, even the flames of Raijin Jaka and Tobium would be cancelled out. Ariro Kujaku might have a chance, but she can always draw power from the world to replace what he drains. Kai no Ti no Megami will bring her down for sure, but I can't afford to reveal that again before Bjorn and Nagash are dead. I may have to rely on Kido to bring her down, and that is all too likely to turn messy given her abilities with academic magic. She has a vast mana capacity, and she can turn that capacity to any field of magic she chooses. Academic magic can be turned to things like warding, calling fire, curses, and many other things, and during her life, she mastered every field of academic magic. Her abilities are many and varied, and after my fight with Magnus, I subscribe to one of Kairaku's favorite sayings. The only fair fight is the one where you have spent hours selecting the battlefield, littering it with traps, and poisoned your enemy, beforehand, he says to every new class in the academy. He wants to make sure they understand that a fair fight, with everything even, is a bad fight. I can kill Tristana, but it will be messy, likely level the city, and will require me to reveal a trump card or 3, and I want my trump cards hidden until I fight Bjorn or Nagash. 3 major players left in this war, 4 minor players. Bjorn, Nagash, and Tristana will all be difficult for most in this alliance to beat, given their power, or in Tristana's case, versatility. Aragorn is also versatile and fairly strong, so he may be difficult to deal with as well. 2 major threats, 2 intermediate level threats, 3 minor threats left. I'll delegate who will be bringing down who, but I will be in on the takedown of Tristana and Aragorn to prevent anything going drastically wrong. Most likely, given my luck, things will turn nasty, and it'll be another scenario of Magnus versus me, or in other words, David versus Goliath, where David tried to wrestle Goliath instead of using a sling. Painful, and fatal for David. I got lucky today, but I can't be sure if that will happen again. It took Tristana all of 30 seconds to nearly kill my hollow before he astralized and retreated. He was in Segunda Etapa at the time, and most of those 30 seconds were spent getting over her disbelief. My hollow left astral form in the same room as her, right when she was taking a bath. I don't blame her for the attack on him, but I wish she had finished the job. Now I need to devote power to helping him heal, damn it all. I plan to sit back and rest for the next 2 days, send out a Keto-created clone of myself to scout as my hollow will be healing, and plan for the next confrontations. I enter Jinzen confident in this plan after making the clone, and send it forth to do its work. I am fully recovered in terms of Reiatsu now, just not in terms of injuries, though the clone lacks my injuries. It may use my noble phantasms, but they are ranked down 2 ranks. I am fairly confident that it will do its job. The last thing I feel before entering the healing trance in Jinzen is my hollow implanting a command in the clone, but I can't tell what it is. I panic, but I am too far along the path to entering my trance, and will not awake from the trance at any point in the next 12 hours. When I wake, I receive the information from the clone, and howl. It is a howl of despair so profound that merely to hear it is to enter the deepest depression. I feel death enter Fuyuki City as all humans within 20 miles who are not Magi commit suicide in their sudden depression, though the strongest-willed and those humans who have either frequently been around Magi or possess Reiatsu resist the depression I feel and radiate. The servants barely notice the radiating depression, shaking it off moments later, though those with lesser levels of magic resistance lift their blades to their throats and are about to strike before getting control of themselves. My hollow implanted the command to use the Keto to switch gender on Aragorn and had the clone fight Tristana and Aragorn both. Apparently, the clone also possessed attraction of power, so now I will have both of them after me. About 5 minutes into the fight, they were snared by it. I howl again to the uncaring skies. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the AEthereal Devastation for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.